Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Marvel. Married the Black Widow at the beginning. Chapter 61. Tianqi subconsciously wanted to reach out and feel it. The God King hurriedly grabbed it and said, Prince Tang, don't touch it casually. When the eternal fire breaks out, it can burn everything and turn everything into ashes. If it is operated properly, it can turn into a vitality, nourishing life and making it endless. In the original plot, after Hela escaped from trouble, she borrowed a little flame from the eternal fire to resurrect an army of thousands of ancient mummies, including the giant wolf Fenrir who could fight the Hulk back and forth. It can make thousands of mummies stand up, and it is indeed bursting with vitality. If a man has any dysfunction, wouldn't he become Long Aocean with a little bit of this flame? There is also the Minotaur Searcher, who originally only had a pair of horns, but was placed under the eternal fire by Loki. In a short period of time, he grew into a towering giant. This vitality is more nourishing than pig feed. Hey, brother, you are smiling so obscenely, what are you thinking about? Thor pushed Apocalypse, who was in random thoughts, and pulled him back from his fantasy. Ahem, I was just thinking that when my strength improves, I will give you a good beating. I haven't avenged the revenge that ended my life as a scumbag. How dare you come to bother me? Odin and Frigga were not in a hurry, and were very comforted to see Thor and Apocalypse talking and laughing. The God King added, however, the method I will think of for you today is not just to increase vitality, as that will not be very effective. Because the human body has its limits. Odin's fingers lightly brushed against the eternal fire, lending a little flame to dance on his fingers. My method is to first use the intensity of the eternal fire to burn the whole body to refine all impurities and expand the body's potential, and then transform the eternal fire into gentle vitality to replenish the potential. In this way, not only will all the shackles on the body be burned away, but there will also be endless vitality, and the future of cultivation will naturally be smooth. The process of replenishing vitality is not troublesome. What is dangerous is the process of refining impurities. If you are not careful, you may be reduced to ashes on the spot. Having said this, the God King and God Queen showed worried expressions. It's not that they care much about Apocalypse's life, but that they finally saw an opportunity to reverse Asgard's fate, but they must not burn it out with a fire. But it had to be done. Tianqi's current strength seems to be strong, but in fact it is far from enough to face the powerful men in the world. What's more, with only the power of the physical body and no magical means such as divine power or magic, if you just throw him into space, you will just wait for death. Tianqi asked, God King, have you tried this method? Odin smiled and felt a little proud. I have only done 3 exercises and 3 tonics to achieve the strength I have today. Where's Saul? Odin hesitated for a moment and said, when I was a child, I protected him and did a lot of training and replenishing. No matter how much, I don't dare to do it anymore. We God race people are still like this. Prince Tang, you are immortal on Earth. I am still a little worried about this first refinement. Originally, Thor was a little frustrated when he heard that he could only do 1 exercise and 1 replenishment, but when he heard that Apocalypse might not be able to pass even 1 exercise, he suddenly became energetic. He came over to Comfort, and said, brother, it doesn't matter if you can't do it. Big brother, I will protect you from now on. If you encounter an enemy that you can't defeat, I will lend you my hammer. Apocalypse ignored Thor and said to Odin, no matter what, I have to give it a try. It is good. The King of Gods did not shy away from suspicion. In front of Sif, he passed on a formula for operating the eternal fire to Apocalypse. Queen Frigga said, I will go to guard the door for you so that no one will disturb you. Sif, please stay. Apocalypse got a little familiar with it, reached out to the eternal fire, and extracted a little flame. It feels warm and moist in the hand, not at all like the temperature of fire. Tianqi could feel a trace of vitality seeping from his palms, but this vitality was too weak. It could only have a cosmetic effect, but it was not enough to increase his strength. Then the palm of his hand turned slightly, and the temperature of the flame gradually increased. Even Sif, who was standing a few meters away, felt hot and scalding her face. The temperature continued to rise, and suddenly there was a sizzling sound, and Apocalypse's flesh was burned through. Before the blood could even gush out, it was burned into nothingness. The fire gradually increased and turned into a ring of fire, spreading from the palm to the arm. Wherever it passed, the flesh and blood burned away, leaving only the bones. The God King was shocked and shouted, "Your body can't bear it, cut off your hands quickly." Above the arms are the shoulders, neck, and head. Once these places are burned, it will be too late to cut. Sif drew her sword and was about to step forward when Apocalypse stopped her and said, "Don't worry, I'll try another method." As he spoke, he took out a bottle of recovery potion from the storage compartment and poured it into his mouth. I saw green light surging around the body, and the arms that were burned by the fire with only bones growing back into flesh and blood in the blink of an eye. Moreover, this flesh and blood is crystal clear. Unlike the other hand, it has obviously been refined by the eternal fire. However, the eternal fire does not stop and continues to refine toward the shoulder. Seeing this, Tianqi hurriedly took out another bottle of recovery potion and drank it. Seeing that he could recover, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. He was thinking that the recovery medicine should not be wasted so much, and he should wait until the burned area was larger before taking it. When the eternal fire burned his neck and mouth, Tianqi wanted to pour the recovery potion into his mouth, but found that as soon as the potion touched the eternal fire, it was immediately burned into nothingness. I poured several bottles in a row, but it was of no use. At this time, only white bones were left in the neck and mouth. When he was about to burn his head, Apocalypse thought quickly and grabbed Sif's sword, stabbed her in the stomach, made an opening, and poured the recovery potion into it. Fortunately, it works. Green light flashed, and the flesh and blood of his mouth and neck grew back. As it burned upwards, the eyes were refined, and they suddenly fell into darkness. At this time, Tianqi no longer dared to use sparingly. He poured bottle after bottle into his stomach. He even forgot to drink with his mouth as his mouth had grown back. When the brain is burned, Apocalypse instantly falls into nothingness. No thoughts, no feelings, no pain. Fortunately, his hands were still mechanically pouring the recovery potion into his stomach. He didn't know how many pills he poured. After an unknown amount of time, Apocalypse felt as if he had come to life. His head could think and his eyes could see. Immediately, the eternal fire burned underneath him. Now that he had experience and a mouth, Tianqi took his time and waited to burn as many parts as possible before drinking the potion from his mouth. The eternal fire burned Apocalypse's whole body, and finally disappeared under his feet. Tianqi breathed a sigh of relief. The most dangerous refining process was finally overcome with the recovery potion provided by the system. At this time, Tianqi's whole body was full of blood, and the discomfort caused by the excessive strength in many parts had disappeared. His whole body was full of energy, as if his meridians had been opened. It just doesn't look indecent, being naked. Not only were the ordinary clothes outside burned away, but even the golden vibranium pants were burned into nothingness, leaving no trace. Don't stop. Hurry up and replenish your vitality before the flesh and blood take shape. God King shouted. Yes. Apocalypse swiped his finger and borrowed another ray of flame from the eternal fire. This time, it was much more comfortable. The warm and comfortable vitality continued to flow into the body, quickly combining with the newly formed flesh and blood, and then precipitating, turning into the indescribable potential. At this point, after practicing and replenishing, it is finally completed. Congratulations, brother. Thor excitedly stepped forward and was about to hug him when he suddenly remembered that Apocalypse was naked and moved away in disgust, leaving Apocalypse awkwardly in place with open arms. Sif came over with a red face holding a set of clothes, obviously prepared. No wonder the Queen of Gods took the initiative to go out just now, she had expected it. Apocalypse grabbed Sif's hand and said, "Don't worry, I have just refined it once, and I will try again." Sif lowered her head, not daring to look directly. However, the place where he was looking down seemed even more unsuitable. He quickly raised his head again, just in time to see Apocalypse's evil smile. He couldn't help but said angrily, "Let me go quickly." Then he ran away with his clothes in his arms and turned his back. Tianqi laughed, "The days ahead are long, don't be anxious for a while. King of Gods, I am ready to continue refining my body." Prince Tang's potion is indeed magical. However, each time the body training becomes more violent, more and more potions may be needed. Tianqi nodded. "I am measured. In a small western town, I stopped the destroyer and saved most of the people in the town. I earned a lot of recovery potions and accumulated thousands of bottles. In the first refinement just now, I consumed more than 300 bottles, and there are still many more, but I don't know if I will need more and more in the future. The second exercise begins. This time, the flames were obviously bigger than the first time, otherwise the flesh and blood would not be transformed, and the effect of the recovery potion would also be significantly weakened. Obviously, higher levels of flesh and blood require more recovery potions. If you calculate it this way, if it is strong enough, the recovery potion will have no effect. However, Tianqi can't think about these details now. After the second refining and the second replenishing were completed, the flesh and blood all over Tianqi's body showed a faint luster. 3 exercises and 3 supplements. 4 exercises and 4 supplements. 5 refining and 5 replenishing. God King Odin and Thor were already numb. Every time they upgraded, they were shocked and finally became numb. What kind of monster is this? Didn't you say that people on Earth might not be able to survive even one session? This is already the 9th refinement. The further back you go, the greater the eternal fire required. The fire of the 9th refining was so powerful that it swept through most of the treasure house, and countless treasures were burned into nothingness. In the end, it burned through the treasure house, and the flames reached hundreds of meters into the ground. Fortunately, the fire was gradually increasing. Sif had already stayed away, and Thor and the God King also took precautions in advance, otherwise the people passing by on the ground would have suffered countless disasters. Suddenly the flames subsided and the 9th refinement was completed. The eternal fire actually shrank in size, visible to the naked eye. Apocalypse's whole body was involuntarily emitting pure white light, as if an angel had descended. This is the appearance of a fleshy body with extremely strong vitality. The skin cannot be locked in, and it turns into radiance and escapes. Apocalypse slowly adjusted his breath and put away the overflowing light. He did not give up until finally, a thin layer of light remained on the surface and could no longer be taken in. Sif, where are my clothes? Apocalypse shouted. Sif walked in response. She was still timid at first and didn't dare to look directly, but when she saw the light on Apocalypse, she couldn't move her eyes away anymore. This kind of brilliance has a natural attraction, and its pure and rich vitality makes all living beings yearn for it. Get out of the treasure house. The moment it appeared, the surrounding aura suddenly changed. The center of the world seemed to be tilting, and the stars were giving way. Apocalypse casually stopped at the square, as if this was the center of Asgard, the center of the universe. The slight radiance radiating from the body makes people unable to take their eyes away. This is the natural worship of the origin of life by living beings, regardless of race. Looking at this light, it seems that they see the source of their own life. Apocalypse came slowly, and many people were infected by his brilliance, and they all lay on the ground and prostrated in salute. Walking all the way, leaving a long corridor of people saluting. Apocalypse asked in a low voice, Sif, you Asgardians don't have the etiquette of kissing feet, right? I'm not wearing shoes now. One sentence brought Sif back from the state of admiration, and said angrily, Bah, who has such disgusting etiquette? Odin and Frigga looked at half of the treasure house that was burned down, with conflicting expressions on their faces. They didn't know whether to be sad or happy. Asgard rules the 9 realms, and the collection of treasures in the treasure house is so precious. If anyone is placed in other races, it will be a treasure that defies heaven. As a result, he was burned to death by Tianqi's body refining fire. It was absolutely impossible to say that he didn't feel distressed. Even the infinity gauntlet in his right hand was burned black. After all, it was a treasure carrying the power of the infinity stones, and it finally withstood the burning of the eternal fire. But seeing that the Prince of Asgard can achieve such unheard of achievements, 9 times of refinement and 9 repairs, there is no need to worry about the fate of Asgard in the future. Now they are a little worried. The current methods of coaxing don't seem to be enough. But for a while, I couldn't think of any better way. When I saw Thor and Apocalypse getting along, I felt a little relieved. Well, it's really a blend. Apocalypse has just completed his physical training, so he naturally wants to test the results. Now the only one who can be beaten with confidence and who is strong enough to withstand beatings is the God of Thunder. The God of Thunder was not afraid and started fighting with his hammer. The effect of the body refining was quickly apparent. Just fighting with Thor for a while had already doubled the Hulk's power, and now he could exert 2 times the Hulk's power. Tianqi himself is looking forward to how far his strength will grow if he practices hard in the future. Stop for a moment, Sif, help me wipe the sweat. Yeah, Sif ran over obediently, not seeing the appearance of the former divine warrior at all, trying hard to find the sweat drops and dust on Apocalypse's body. After wiping it off in just a few strikes, Apocalypse called out again, Exif, come here and help me squeeze my shoulders. It seemed like I was pulling hard just now. The god of thunder became angry as soon as he heard this, and the god of God pulled him back. Your current physique is so unbelievable to the heavens, but you just managed to pull it off with just a few moves. After going back and forth for a few times, Thor finally understood that retribution was coming. A few days ago, she had a fight with Tianqi in a bar. Jane helped her treat her wounds. She kept showing off her affection and silently laughed at him for being single. Now that Jane is no longer with him, it's Tianqi's turn to show off. However, Sif, who was once his subordinate, has no dignity at all as a divine warrior. He asked you to wipe your sweat. With his physique, where did the sweat come from? In this way, Apocalypse practiced martial arts, teased Thor, this person was right, and looked at the mountains and rivers with Sif, and the days passed like this. Asgard has no age, and no one knows how much time has passed. One day, Heimdall suddenly came to the God King and reported a very troublesome matter. Loki appears on Earth. The God King was shocked. Although he didn't care about the life and death of people on Earth, his son's girlfriend and Prince Tang's wife were both on Earth. With Loki's ruthless character, there is a high probability that he will attack these people. I still think that the means of win over are not enough, but I can't let Loki cause Prince Tang to turn against him. Unfortunately, the Rainbow Bridge has not yet been repaired, and it is too far to take a spaceship. By the time we get there, the Earth will be cold. God King Odin found Thor in Apocalypse and explained the cause of the matter in detail. At that moment, Thor became anxious and shouted to go to Earth. Apocalypse knew that Loki still found Thanos, got the command of an army, and came to Earth to cause trouble. The plot of Avengers 3 has begun. The God King sighed and said, now that the matter is over, we can only use dark energy to send you to Earth. However, sending 2 people requires a lot of dark energy. I need to prepare with the Elder Council for a few days. It's not clear what kind of Apocalypse dark energy is. In the original plot, Thor saw Loki coming to Earth to cause trouble, and was teleported here through dark energy in desperation. Even Loki said, Father is really willing to spend a lot of money to send you here. It follows that dark energy is either extremely rare or extremely expensive. Earth, an abandoned factory somewhere. Black Widow tied several arms dealers to chairs and whipped them hard with a whip. The arms dealers had tape stuck on their mouths and kept moaning, ooh. In the original plot, it was Black Widow who deliberately pretended to be caught and tied to a chair, taking advantage of the woman's weakness and turning the story around. But the arrival of Apocalypse prohibited her from using her beauty skills, so her style of performing tasks in the past 2 years was uncharacteristically different. Originally, he pretended to be a little white rabbit, but now he stopped pretending and started fighting and killing hard, with a style that frightened his colleagues. In addition, Tianqi disappeared for 2 years, which made her extremely worried. After all, this time we are going to Asgard, the legendary country, to fight the legendary gods. Although Tianqi is strong, no one dares to say that he will win. At that time, there were 2 destroyers in the town, which everyone could see. One could equal Apocalypse, and 2 almost killed him. There has been no news for 2 years now, and I don't know whether he is alive or dead. Iron Man, Black Widow and others are both looking forward to hearing from him, but also afraid of hearing from him. Now, Black Widow is directing her wrath on these hapless arms dealers. In the arms dealer's heart, 1 grass mud horses galloped past. Sister, Beauty, please ask for any information you want. He tied us up, covered our mouths with tape, and whipped us hard. I'm afraid he's not a perverted agent who likes to torture people, right? At this time, a phone call came in. Black Widow picked it up and asked, is Apocalypse back? Fury on the other end of the phone was helpless. Natasha, I told you, if Tang comes back, I will notify you as soon as possible. Besides, you are his wife, he will definitely look for you first when he comes back. Well, since it's not his news, don't call me if it's okay. Fury cursed in his mind, I am your director, why can't I call you? However, he knew that he couldn't support the fire at this time, so he had to say, there is a new task for you. My current mission is not completed yet. Several arms dealers nearby were desperate and screamed, woo. She didn't finish what she said. Did she not fight enough? Fury sighed and said, Barton rebelled. Black Widow suddenly realized that the matter was serious. It's okay to want Hawkeye Barton to die, but if he wants to rebel, the possibility is infinitely close to zero. But since Director Fury said this, there must be something shocking. So he put away his temper and asked, do you want me to hunt him down? No, I want you to invite someone. A photo was sent, and Black Widow opened it and saw a name written on the picture. Dr. Bruce Banner. Black Widow finished dealing with the arms dealers and returned to S.H.I.E.L.D. Director, you want me to invite the Hulk? No, Natasha, it's Dr. Banner. This time, we don't need a transformed monster, we need a wise brain to help us find the Cosmic Cube. Director Fury detailed the recent events to Black Widow. A few days ago, there was an experiment in the West End. Dr. Eric observed that the Cosmic Cube explodes with energy every 4 hours. Just when they were worried about the danger of this energy, the Cosmic Rubik's Cube suddenly opened a channel, and a strong man came out of it. Not only did he steal the Cosmic Cube, he also hacked Dr. Eric and Hawkeye. The base's energy explosion caused the building to collapse, and the entire base sank underground. Deputy Director Agent Hill was also trapped in his car by the landslide. Fortunately, his life was not in danger. Fury said, the energy level of the Cosmic Cube is high enough to easily destroy the Earth. We must retrieve it before it explodes. It's emitting gamma rays all the time, and we can track it by tracking the gamma rays. And the person who knows the most about gamma rays in this world is none other than Dr. Banner. Black Widow said, Director, Dr. Banner's situation is very unstable. If he transforms into the Hulk, I don't think anyone can bring him except Apocalypse. The Bureau has already considered this problem, Fury said. You should try your best not to irritate him. If he accidentally transforms, we have prepared a secret weapon for you. What secret weapon? Black Widow was really curious now. She had read the Hulk's files in detail. Apart from the monster her husband is, I have never heard of any weapon that can truly suppress him in a monster-to-monster manner. What's more, he also has a talent. The angrier he becomes, the stronger he becomes. No one knows where his limit is. Maybe the secret weapon can withstand it one moment, but the next moment, it will be torn to pieces by the Hulk. Fury took out a document bag and a recording pen and handed them to Black Widow. This is the result of years of research on the Hulk by the Bureau's team of psychological experts. If he transforms, you use it. Black Widow opened the document bag and looked at the contents, and she immediately couldn't laugh or cry. Director, are you kidding me? Fury said seriously, this is war. I won't joke. The assessment of psychological experts shows that based on Hulk's psychological characteristics, the success rate of this secret weapon is as high as 90%. A 90% success rate is already an extremely high number for agents who often hover on the edge of life and death. In the original plot, Black Widow used some psychological techniques to guide Hulk. But the risk is still extremely high. Black Widow needs to pay attention to Hulk's micro-expressions at all times and adjust her tone, speech content, expressions, and even tiny movements in a timely manner. Let the angry Hulk slowly calm down and transform into Dr. Banner. This requires extremely high skills. As an agent and spy, Black Widow has professional training in this area, which ordinary people cannot learn at all. Later, Thor met Hulk on Sakaar and wanted to imitate him. However, he was beaten up by the Hulk because he couldn't smile enough. But now, Fury tells Black Widow that as long as she takes out the secret weapon and does nothing, there is a 90% success rate to turn Hulk back into Banner. Black Widow thought it was a bit fanciful, but after looking at the secret weapon, it seemed like it might be possible, right? I have prepared the 9th Elite team for you. They are already waiting for you. You distribute the secret weapons to them. Fury said. Okay, there are more than a dozen big men in the 9th Elite team, fully armed, already waiting in the weapons room. When he saw Black Widow coming in, he immediately stood up and saluted. Head. Well, sit down. Is the mission clear to everyone? This time we are inviting Dr. Banner, not Hulk. Don't anger him. A soldier stood up and said, Boss, this guy is extremely unstable. No one can guarantee that he will not transform. Many of them had participated in the hunt for the Hulk in their early years and knew best how terrifying this green monster was. Black Widow said calmly, the Bureau has taken this into consideration. We have prepared a secret weapon for you. If he transforms, you put on the secret weapon. Then, a dozen document bags were handed out. A dozen elite men took out the contents and looked at each other in shock. They almost cursed on the spot. Are you kidding me with my life? But seeing Black Widow's serious face, no one dared to really curse. Although the leader may be beautiful and cute, the soldiers who often go on missions with her know best how terrifying she is. Finally, a dozen big men discussed quietly for a while and sent out a strong man who failed in the bet. The strong man is the heavy weapon player in the team. He is 2 meters tall and weighs over 400 pounds. At this time, he is like a little daughter-in-law, turning his head 3 times and looking at his teammates with resentment. He didn't know why he always lost in bets. Black Widow asked, any questions? The strong man coyly said in a low voice, boss, let me ask you, are you kidding? We can't see where the joke is. Black Widow sternly said, it's alert level 7 now, it's war, who has time to joke with you? The big man trembled in fright, and Chi said, but, this secret weapon. Weapons have been issued to you. Use them as you like. If anyone doesn't use them, your family will just wait to receive the pension. In fact, Black Widow was also worried, but she had to be very confident in order to stabilize her military morale. Moreover, leading soldiers is not leading students. Many times there are only dead orders and not much explanation. Set off. The country of the third brother, Calcutta, slums. At this time, Dr. Banner was treating dengue fever infection for the poor, although he was not the other doctor. But with his IQ, it is not difficult to learn some basic medical treatment methods, which is better than waiting for death as a poor man who knows nothing. In order to avoid potential accidents and casualties, Black Widow used a little girl to trick Dr. Banner into the suburbs, just like the original plot. When Dr. Banner saw the little girl disappear and the Black Widow appear, he immediately understood that this was a trap. You were smart and led me to the suburbs. I guess this place is already surrounded. Black Widow tried hard to create a stress-free image and whispered to Banner, I just want to have a good talk with you. I have something to ask you for help. What's your name? My name is Natasha. Yeah, that's a good name. What if I refuse? This matter involves the safety of countless people's lives. I believe you will agree after understanding the situation. Banner paused and said, what if the other side of me says no? Black Widow smiled and said, I will convince him too. Dr. Banner suddenly slammed his hands on the table and shouted, lie. I know you want to put me in a cage. If you can't catch me, you just want to lie to me. The Black Widow was startled, and instinctively stepped back, approaching the window, and then jumped out. In the original plot, she prepared a pistol under the table, but now that she has a secret weapon, she doesn't put the pistol away. Besides, everyone knows that bullets are useless against the Hulk. Dr. Banner was stunned. He originally just wanted to scare the other party, but he didn't expect that the other party jumped out of the window and ran away, which surprised him. I haven't transformed yet, so that's not the case, right? With his mind so relaxed, another personality began to revive. Dr. Banner looked at his arms that were slowly getting thicker and turning green, and shouted, no, 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 no. But the situation is irreversible. Roar. Hulk appears. The beast-like roar shocked the entire slum, but many people just glanced at the direction of the sound numbly and continued to do what they were doing lifelessly. Get ready, put on your secret weapon. Natasha shouted. After the voice fell, a dozen big men quickly took out a photo from their tactical bag and put it on their faces. This photo is exactly Tianqi's avatar. Tianqi in the photo, sunny and handsome, seemed to have seen something. He turned slightly sideways, showing his white teeth, and smiled while looking ahead. When the elite team members saw this photo, their first reaction was that the leader was kidding us. Look, This smile and this look are so charming at first glance, ordinary people can't laugh at all. If Apocalypse were here, I'm afraid he would be able to recognize it at a glance. This is Yeeta's smile. Apocalypse in his previous life was often brainwashed by these advertisements. Hey, your Yeeta fell off. No, it's your Yeeta. Then when he turned around, that sunny and handsome smiling face came from this. Coupled with the additional performance of Zhong Wei, the god of toilet war, in the previous life, this smile poisoned the hearts of many young people. Even after traveling through a universe, these imprints are still in Apocalypse's mind. He didn't even know when he smiled or when he was photographed by S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. Roar, roar, roar. The Hulk smashed the small shabby house flat with random smashes. After he smashed all the things that blocked his vision, he looked around. The two-story green body staggered in fright, and its wild beast-like rage instantly transformed into a frightened deer. A dozen apocalyptic faces were smiling at him. It was like a nightmare. To the Hulk, there is nothing more terrifying in the world. This is Fury's secret weapon, Apocalypse photos. It seems absurd, but there are actually extremely high psychological skills behind it. This is a decision that can only be made based on a complete and in-depth understanding of the personality of the Hulk. After years of tracking, they analyzed that the Hulk's personality seemed violent, but he was actually kind-hearted and didn't like killing. It's just that the gamma energy is too large, which can easily cause some hallucinations. In the original plot, Banner said to his girlfriend Elizabeth, "It felt like a hallucinogen magnified 1,000 times. If someone shoots or runs away, he will instinctively chase after him. Hulk doesn't know why. If you run away, I'll chase you. Why should I chase you if you don't run away?" As a result, the person being chased is in danger, and if he stays put, the Hulk may not attack. However, no one could stay calm when facing the Hulk and his tendency to roar whenever he had no problem. Secondly, despite the fact that the Hulk is so violent, psychologists have analyzed various details of the Hulk and found that his personality is equivalent to that of a 5 or 6-year-old child. If you can't control him, he will become more troublesome and naughty. If there was someone who could suppress him, he would be obedient and not dare to mess around. In the original plot, the Hulk was beaten to the ground by several military punches by Thanos, and was left with a psychological shadow. Later, when he was needed to participate in the battle, Hulk's personality did not dare to come out at all, even if Thanos did not arrive. During the street battle in New York, Apocalypse beat the Hulk with his own hands until his teeth were all over the ground, which can be described as extremely frightening. If he was just afraid, Fury wouldn't dare to let Black Widow come over with the photo. However, Apocalypse saved his girlfriend again, and he has an instinctive closeness to Apocalypse. Who, friend? No. No fight. I can't beat. No fight, ho. Under the strong hallucination of gamma energy, the Hulk could not distinguish between reality and fantasy. Faced with more than a dozen apocalypses, he did not want to fight and did not dare to fight. The 9th Elite team was very unsure at first, but they didn't expect it to be really useful. Suddenly they felt that this world was really absurd and could be solved by wearing a photo. Why did they risk their lives before? The Hulk's two-story body huddled up, like an aggrieved child. He didn't understand. I didn't do anything bad, why would I have such a nightmare? One team member instinctively wanted to raise his gun, which suddenly alerted the Hulk. Roar. Black Widow hurriedly stood in front of the team member and ordered in a low voice, "Don't use guns, everyone, stay calm and don't move." Then, Black Widow stretched out her hands and comforted, "The sun is setting, big guy, you should have a good rest now." Boom, boom. In 2 steps, the Hulk's huge body came closer and looked down at the Black Widow. Seeing the Black Widow's well-developed chest muscles and exquisite figure, she curiously stretched out a finger, cut it off, and said doubtfully, "You don't look like a friend." Black Widow tried to stand firm. She must not fall to the ground at this time. Once she fell to the ground, Hulk's instinct to bully the weak and fear the strong would suddenly come out. He quietly took out the recording pen behind his back and pressed the play button. Quote, "Come to me when you change back to Banner. If you don't change and go back to Banner, what will you do with your girlfriend?" These were the last 2 words Apocalypse said to the Hulk during the New York battle. There is monitoring and recording equipment on the helicopter. The original sound is very small, but after the tuner repaired it, it is almost the same as the sound of ordinary people. Who? Ho. The voice brought back memories of the Hulk, and the feeling of being dominated by Apocalypse probably came back to his mind. The Hulk was spinning around, trying to escape from this nightmare, but he was surrounded by Apocalypse's smiling face, and he felt like he couldn't get out, even though he could jump dozens of kilometers in one big jump. Then the voice of Apocalypse was still in his mind, change back to Banner. Change back to Banner. Change back to Banner. Change back to Banner. After struggling for a while, Hulk finally gave up. The low roar slowly became inaudible, and there was a gurgle sound in the bones of the body. The body became smaller, the green color on the body quickly faded, and he turned back into Dr. Banner. Dr. Banner woke up faintly, opened his eyes, and saw a dozen identical smiling faces facing him. He was so frightened that his heart almost stopped. Ouch! Oh my God! If he hadn't just transformed once, he would definitely have transformed after this scare. A team member came forward and covered Banner with a blanket. Black Widow said calmly, "We convinced Hulk to come with us." Banner had no choice but to follow Black Widow. Without Hulk, he couldn't even defeat an ordinary person. At the same time, I was wondering, what just happened? Looking at the surrounding situation, the house collapsed, and there were large footprints of Hulk on the ground. He must have transformed, but it seemed that no one was hurt, which made Banner relieved. Dr. Banner and the Hulk, the memories of these two personalities are not connected. On Sakaar, the Hulk and Valkyrie had known each other for several years, but when they transformed back into Banner, neither of them knew each other, but they just felt familiar. On the helicopter, the members of the 9th Elite team took the photo and looked at it over and over again, but they really couldn't see any clue in it. I think there might be a god up there. He is an Oriental. What's wrong with Easterners? Can't they be gods? That's not true. The main reason is that we in the West don't believe in him. If we don't believe in him, it won't work. I think you are overthinking it. It should be this smile. Look, who of us can usually smile like this? It seems so. A dozen or so heavily armed men bared their teeth at the photo, but they felt it lacked some charm. Is it the head shaking part that's missing, or is there something in front of me? After laughing for a while, someone said with emotion, "Well, this smile is a bit extraordinary, we can't even laugh." That's right, it's really magical, but we don't know where the magic is. How about asking the boss? After a small bet, Dazhuang lost again and was sent to talk to Black Widow. Boss, can I ask who the person in this photo is?" She didn't expect her man to be so impressive in every photo. Black Widow was naturally very proud. Plus, the photos were shown to the team members, so she didn't need to keep the confidentiality so tight. So he said, "He is my man." Hiss. The team members gasped with more than a dozen mouths. Unexpectedly, the Black Widow, who everyone in the world was afraid of, actually had a man, and looking at her, she clearly looked like a fallen little girl. Although they are Black Widow's subordinates and respect and fear her, not everyone wants to try to seduce Black Widow. However, none of them succeeded, and instead they were sent to training. Now, they believe even more that the smile in the photo is magical. Hey, even the Hulk and the boss can't resist the magic of this smile. Everyone says that if we learn how to pick up girls, wouldn't it be great to pick up girls? Sigh, if I had learned this smile earlier, maybe something would have happened to me, boss. When handing over the task, other colleagues saw the weirdest 9th Elite team in history, a dozen big men with weird smiles who laughed at everyone, especially beautiful women. Black Widow arranged for Dr. Banner, but before she could rest, she received the news. S.H.I.E.L.D. discovered Loki's whereabouts. To be precise, Loki deliberately let them find out. After Loki arrived on Earth, he blackmailed a group of people, including Hawkeye, and carried out his own plans. At the same time, he appeared in major cities to vent his anger. When his father chose to save the Earthling, Loki completely hated the Earth. Even without Thanos' instigation, he would come here as soon as possible to cause a scene. In the original plot, he only made one public appearance at a concert, then pretended to fail and was caught on purpose. But this time, he simply stopped hiding it. Appearing directly in many places, waving the sharp knife and scepter in his hand, using the soul gem embedded in it, directly blackmailing everyone present. Of course, Loki doesn't need these mortals, but wants them to take revenge on other Earthlings. Blackened people have no concept of good and evil, and are not even afraid. They are more terrifying than criminals. In a short period of time, many cities in Europe have experienced soaring crime rates and plunged into chaos. Black Widow Anne came to the conference room. Director Fury and Agent Hill were already waiting for her. There were several technicians next to them, waiting for instructions. Fury stepped forward and said in a deep voice, "Natasha, when you watch this video, you have to be mentally prepared." Black Widow looked confused. What should she do to prepare mentally for watching a video? Is it bloody or something? In their line of work, a lot of the blood is made by oneself, so it is a joke to say that you have to be mentally prepared. However, since Director Fury asked, Black Widow had no choice but to nod. "Let's start," Fury ordered, and the technician played a video on the holographic screen. The above is a speech made by Loki standing in the middle of the hall while robbing a precious metals bank. "In the name of the gods, I order you, kneel down." After kneeling down, the world becomes much clearer. Ha 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 ha, this is human nature, eager to be conquered and obey the strong. On the surface you desire freedom, but on the inside you are afraid of breaking the current boundaries. You follow the rules every day and live a rotten and moldy life. Chasing power, chasing desire, just hoping to be recognized by others. What a disgusting life this is. I, Loki, the god of trickery, in the name of God, grant you true freedom. As he spoke, he waved his scepter, and a beam of light fell on the people present. In the blink of an eye, these people's eyes turned black, like two black holes, and then they turned around and left numbly. Next, this group of people detonated crime throughout the city. Some people were killed, houses were burned, and there were screams everywhere. At the end of the shot, Loki glanced at the surveillance camera, smiled evilly, and disappeared into the air. Obviously, he left these images deliberately and didn't care about others knowing about his presence. He said his name was Loki, god of trickery. Black Widow's face suddenly turned pale. He stepped forward and pushed away the technician, operated the computer himself, and then opened an archive video. This video was shot by Coulson from a distance during the Battle of the Western Town. Black Widow fast-forwarded the video to the scene when Thor walked towards the destroyer. "Loki, I know you're looking at me. Is this what you want? Killing civilians, hurting innocents, what good will it do to you? If you want to kill, kill me. Otherwise, when I return to Asgard, I will teach you a lesson, brother." Seeing this, Black Widow's face lost all color and she could hardly stand still. Agent Hill quickly stepped forward to support her. Fury said, "Natasha, I'm afraid Apocalypse will never come back. I know you are very sad now, but we need you to stay rational and not be impulsive. Now, the crisis facing the Earth has not passed yet." Black Widow's eyes were dead, and all life seemed to have left her. Her words were as cold as iron. "I will not be impulsive. My husband is so strong and I have never beaten him. I will not die in vain. I will use all means and strength to dig out his heart." As he said that, he turned around and left with some staggering. Fury motioned for Agent Hill to follow. Hawkeye, who has the best friendship with Black Widow, has been darkened. Now, Black Widow has no one she can talk to in S.H.I.E.L.D., so she has to send Hill, who is also a woman, to take care of Black Widow temporarily. In the two videos just now, according to S.H.I.E.L.D.'s reasoning, Thor and Apocalypse have been judged to have failed. No wonder there has been no news for more than 2 years. From the words of Thor roaring to the sky, everyone knows that the one who is fighting against Thor is Loki, the god of trickery. Moreover, it is a life and death feud. Otherwise, they would not have sent puppets to hunt down the people on Earth, and they would have been merciless and would have beaten them to death. In other words, when Thor and Apocalypse go to Asgard, it must end with the death of one of them. Now, there has been no news from Apocalypse, Thor and others for 2 years, but the enemy they want to deal with, Loki, appears on Earth in a big way and does whatever he wants. The difference between victory and defeat can be determined at a glance. According to Fury's analysis, Thor and Apocalypse are inherently weak parties. Otherwise, how could Thor have been knocked off the Earth before? Going to the kingdom of Asgard, facing the gods on someone else's territory, although Apocalypse is strong, the odds of winning cannot be said to be high. Now, it really failed. Fury sighed, and now Loki began to harvest the Earth as a victor. We really can't blame Fury, Black Widow and others for thinking this way. Across the universe and with not much information, the current reasoning is undoubtedly the most reasonable. Who would have thought that the victorious Thor in Apocalypse would be trapped in Asgard due to the rupture of the Rainbow Bridge, unable to return for the time being? Loki, who failed, did not die, but opened a passage from another universe and came to Earth faster than them. Loki naturally deduced that the Rainbow Bridge would not be repaired so quickly, so he dared to be so arrogant. Therefore, it gives people the illusion of a winner. After waiting hard for 2 years, but for this result, Black Widow felt dead in her heart. She thought her heart had died long ago, and she stayed in S.H.I.E.L.D. just to find a little feeling of home. Unexpectedly, during a mission, I would encounter Apocalypse, and my cold heart began to regain its vitality. She even began to search for various advanced treatment options, looking forward to the day she would have children in the future. If he had never encountered Apocalypse and never had life ignited in his heart, then Loki would be nothing more than a powerful intruder. But now, he has taken away all his love and hope. In grief, Black Widow not only did not lose her mind, she became more ruthless than ever. Alas, Fury sighed, I have to be a villain again. After that, send the 2 videos before and after to Iron Man. Tony, I hope that after you watch the video, please don't lose your cool. The Earth needs you now. I watched the 2 videos quickly, and with Iron Man's IQ, I understood them instantly. Did that mysterious man who once delivered takeaways when he was in the most difficult situation, saved himself endangered time and time again, shouted for takeout fees all day long, but never asked himself to give him anything in return? Did he just die in a foreign land like this? Did he just disappear into his own world? Even his relationship with Pepper, it was his clever push that led to the love he has today. I couldn't even get his body, and I didn't even know how to hold a funeral or mourn for him. An unspeakable sadness surged from the heart of Iron Man. Apart from hearing the sad news about his parents, Iron Man never thought that he would lose such an important person in his life again. Iron Man pressed the call button on the phone on the table and said in a hoarse voice, Pepper, come in quickly, I need you. Pepper Potts could never resist Iron Man's words. He rushed in and saw Tony's extremely sad expression. He was frightened and at a loss and asked, what's wrong? Don't ask first, hold me tight and don't let me cry. I'm afraid that after crying, I will become weak and afraid to face. Pepper hugged Iron Man tightly, feeling his breathing, rapid and depressed. Pepper said, Tony, although I don't know what happened, if you want to cry, just cry and no one will laugh at you. I can't cry now. What he wants to do hasn't been done yet. I want to finish it for him. When the destroyer came to the western town, although everyone was not sure whether Asgard had any idea of invading the Earth. But objectively, it does endanger the safety of people on Earth. If it weren't for Apocalypse, I don't know how many people would have died in the entire town. Publicly and privately, Apocalypse goes to fight Asgard to protect the Earth. I don't know how long it took, but Iron Man's breathing finally calmed down. Thank you, I'm fine now. Iron Man's face was as dark as water and his eyes were bloodshot, which made Pepper panic. He gently pushed Xiaojiao away and said, I want to go out for a while. After that, he walked resolutely towards the laboratory where the suit was stored. Where are you going? Go kill a god. Fury here. He opened the computer and found a top-secret document with the title, Avengers Plan. This document was established as early as the last century, when Captain Marvel just left. S.H.I.E.L.D. is monitoring more and more alien civilizations, and more powerful people are coming to the Earth. They don't take the Earth seriously at all, and they fight here at will, and even massacre. Fury has realized that traditional weapons and combat concepts can no longer cope with these powerful men. Only through force can we resist the alien enemies. They even have to counterattack to make them dare not underestimate the Earth. This is the original intention of the Avengers. The name comes from one of Captain Marvel's fighter planes. Now, on the document, there are simply a few names written. Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers. Captain of the United States, Steve Rogers. Iron Man, Tony Stark. Hulk personality, Dr. Banner. Hawkeye, Clint Barton. Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff. War Machine, Lieutenant Colonel James Lord. Oriental Tang Tianqi. These are all added or deleted by Fury at any time based on the actual situation. Now, as if his fingers were extremely heavy, he placed them on the delete key and deleted the 3 words, Tang Tianqi, one by one. Fury took out an inconspicuous pager, and a golden red pattern appeared on it, with a golden star in the middle and red abstract wings extending out on both sides. It was the interstellar pager that Captain Marvel left for Fury. This pager was originally just a technological product of the people on Earth in the last century. Captain Marvel adapted it to local conditions and modified it with the technology of the Kree civilization. The signal can be transmitted throughout the galaxy. No matter where she is, she can receive it. As long as there is a big crisis related to the survival of the Earth, if you press this button, Captain Marvel will rush back to the Earth from other galaxies in the galaxy. Fury took the interstellar pager in his hand, hesitated for a moment, and then put it away close to his body. Although we are facing gods now, it seems that it will only cause chaos and casualties but will not destroy the Earth. Fury decided to give it a try. At this time, the staff outside sent a message. Director, Iron Man, Captain America, and Dr. Banner are all here. Are you ready to take off? Let Hill command the liftoff. I'll go to the deck to greet them. In the original plot, it was Black Widow who handled the reception. Now that Black Widow is so heartbroken, it is naturally inappropriate to send her there again. Fury walked out of the office and saw a vast ocean outside, with many fighter planes parked on the huge deck. Many staff were constantly using tools to fix fighter planes and equipment. Hey, welcome, Steve, Tony, Banner. Fury greeted him. Iron Man nodded politely, while Banner looked indifferent. As for the American captain, he has just woken up from a 70-year slumber and is still in the process of adapting to this new era. Seeing the fighter planes around him, he sighed. If we had so many advanced fighter planes, we wouldn't have killed so many brothers when fighting the Nazis. We won after all, didn't we? Fury said. Let's go in first. There will be some lack of oxygen here. Just as he was talking, whirlpools slowly rose on the sea surface and appeared on both sides of the huge deck, 2 in front and 2 in the back, and the water sank one after another. Then, a huge motor roar came, and 4 huge turbine fans slowly rose from the vortex. The fan pages alone were more than 10 meters long. The water that has not yet had time to fall is like a waterfall. Under the beating of the turbine fan, it splashes water mist all over the sky. The deck gradually rose, and the huge hull appeared completely in the air. This is an offensive and defensive command center built by SHIELD, the space carrier. Facing a threat that can destroy the Earth, it is obviously not suitable to stay in a dead place. The enemy has too many ways to invade. If a story like the last one at the West Side Rubik's Cube Institute happens again, everyone will be blamed and the accusation system will be completely paralyzed. The space carrier rose several hundred meters into the sky. Captain America and Banner had enough of the scenery and went inside. Hill, who was directing the flight, gave the order, prepare to become invisible. Then, the space carrier opened its simulated reflectors, and the entire huge mothership completely disappeared in the sky. Unless it passes through some clouds, some strange shapes will appear. Going inside, there is a huge command center, with people coming and going, and everyone is responsible for their own subsystem. He saw a lot of advanced technology after waking up. What surprised the American captain the most was not how advanced it was, but the photo of Apocalypse's, Yda's smile, posted in many places. Because Dr. Banner is on board, the secret weapon that has been proven effective will naturally continue to be used to prevent accidents. One for everyone. Some people find it troublesome to carry it with them, or are worried that they will not be able to wear it in time when encountering the Hulk, so they simply stick it at their work location, at the door of their room, or in the corridor. Is this a big star? Or is he an Oriental? The captain of the United States is confused. He has recently made up a lot of knowledge about the era, but he has never heard of this star. Dr. Banner shrugged and said, this is their secret weapon to prevent another big guy. Fury, Black Widow, Iron Man, Captain America, and Dr. Banner held a simple meeting. Banner naturally arranged to analyze gamma rays around the world and search for the cosmic Rubik's Cube, while the others were ready. Iron Man and Black Widow gave each other a comforting hug. Only the captain of the United States was full of questions. He only knew who the enemy was, but he didn't know what happened. When I first got on the boat was either filled with weird photos or solemn expressions of other people. In the end, what happened? Could it be that something big happened while I was asleep? Soon, Loki appeared again. This time, he appeared at a concert in Europe. A big shot comes to listen to this musical feast, and Hawkeye has already found out that his eyeballs are the key to opening the vault. Loki wore a suit, walked up to the big man, and threw the big man onto an art platform with a single-handed throw. Then he took out an instrument and thrust it into the big man's eye, immediately gouging out his entire eyeball. Over in the vault, Hawkeye had already held the same instrument. Loki's instrument scanned the eyeball information, and Hawkeye simultaneously generated a simulated hologram. After a while, the eyeball verification passed and the safe was easily opened. There was a tube of iridium inside. Hawkeye tied it behind his back and disappeared into the night. Loki drove the crowd to the square outside and revealed his true form. The helmet has 2 horns, a cape is tied to the shoulders, and he wears armor. He has also expressed his stinking heresy. A dying World War II veteran stood up and said tremblingly, "We have defeated people like you before, but I will not surrender to you." Loki said coldly, "If this is the case, then I will kill the chicken to scare the monkeys." He raised his scepter and emitted a divine light. At this moment, a shield fell from the sky, blocking the divine light and bouncing it back to Loki, who was caught off guard. The visitor is naturally the captain of the United States. After seeing the image of the American captain clearly, Rocky couldn't help but laughed. "Hey, here comes an outdated veteran." At this time, the American captain was still wearing old-fashioned combat uniforms, especially the hood, which covered his eyes and hair. In today's era, he looked a bit silly. The American captain was unmoved and said calmly, "As long as we protect the people, veterans will never go out of style." Saying that, he attacked. The surrounding crowd screamed and fled. Fortunately, this was a square, so there was no stampede and people ran away quickly. Although Loki is weak in frontal combat, it is only compared to other gods. Facing the people on Earth, he beat the captain of the United States to the point where he was unable to fight back with just his physical strength. After a few moves, Loki pressed his head with a scepter, trying to make him surrender. "Don't think about it." Seeing that the surrounding civilians had run away, the captain smiled. The fight plan just now was successful. Just as Loki was about to kill him, a stream of light flew from the sky, and an energy laser cannon knocked Loki away. The person who came was none other than Iron Man. Loki fell to the ground and did not get up immediately. According to his plan, he would just make a few casual attacks, then pretend to be captured, find the space carrier, and destroy the Earthlings' command center in one fell swoop. Although his strength is not weak compared to the people on Earth, he doesn't like to do things that only barbarians do. As the god of conspiracy, he prefers to play tricks and watch humans being teased. In the original plot, Iron Man and Captain did what he wanted. When they saw him raising his hands to surrender, they put him on the fighter plane and took him back to the mothership. But he ignored the influence of one person, Tang Tianchi. Loki only deduced that the Rainbow Bridge in Asgard would not be repaired so quickly, and he could use this time difference to occupy the Earth. You can do whatever you want until Thor and Apocalypse return. Unexpectedly, S.H.I.E.L.D. had arrived early and deduced that he had killed Apocalypse. At this time, the Black Widow, who was hovering in the sky in a Quinjet fighter, said, "Steve, please stay away." Da 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 da. The aircraft's machine gun fired 2 tongues of flame, and countless bullets poured out. The place where Loki was instantly splashed with dust. Following this, Iron Man's hand cannon laser and various micro-missiles were fired at Loki. Loki was caught off guard and looked confused. "Didn't I raise my hands and surrender? Why are you still fighting?" Could it be that his false surrender was discovered? Fortunately, as a god, his body was not weak, so he was fine. However, he was beaten so much that his whole body ached, his cloak was torn, and he was in a very embarrassed state. After all, with the destructive power of the Hulk, a severe beating on him would only knock him out of his wits, without even causing any substantial damage. One can imagine how strong his body is. However, the American captain was a little confused. The guy just raised his hands and surrendered, right? Why are Black Widow and Iron Man still working hard? But at this time, the 10-meter radius where Loki was already filled with bullets, artillery fire, and lasers, and the captain did not dare to approach rashly. Loki was angry and confused, and shouted, "Stop fighting, I surrender." At this time, the onboard machine gun had finished firing bullets, and the Black Widow lowered its flight altitude and allowed the Quinjet to enter autopilot. He jumped up and shot towards Loki from the sky. Loki was furious. "I even pretended to be defeated and surrendered. You still want to bully me?" So, he raised his scepter and stabbed Natasha. Just as he was about to assassinate Black Widow in midair, Iron Man accelerated and knocked Loki down. When the American captain saw it, he didn't have time to think so much, so he naturally stepped forward to help. As a result, Iron Man, Captain America, and Black Widow surrounded Loki and attacked. Iron Man can fly and naturally attacks from the air. The captain held a shield and faced Loki's divine light head-on. As for Black Widow, she seemed to be crazy, trying desperately to attack the fatal parts of Loki's body, even without regard for her own safety. But with her power, she couldn't do any harm to Loki. Fortunately, with the help of Iron Man and Captain America, it was no big deal for a while. The American captain shouted while fighting, "Hey, guy named Rocky, didn't you say you surrender? Why did you fight back?" Loki said angrily, "I have already said to surrender, why did you do it?" The captain said, "We won't do anything if you don't fight back." "Bah, it's weird to believe you. I won't fight back if you don't do it. You surrender, but you must first not fight back. You are despicable. You must stop taking action first. You surrender. You are despicable." For a time, the arguments fell into an endless loop, with no outcome in the quarrel, and no winner in the battle. Loki felt that the people on Earth were really unreasonable, and he tried to surrender without any disadvantages, but when he encountered these three idiots, it had no effect at all. Loki deceived and surrendered countless times throughout his life, and succeeded almost every time. Needless to say, he had deceived the god of thunder and the frost giant king before, including the things that had not happened in the original plot, such as pretending to surrender to the Dark Elves and pretending to surrender to Thanos to gain their trust. It was only with Thanos that the difference in strength was too great, which led to the failure of the plan. Unexpectedly, his first false surrender on Earth failed, and people simply ignored him. Loki felt aggrieved. If you raise your hands, you will just get beaten. If you fight back, you still have to be beaten. Fighting and killing was not in line with his style as a deceitful god. At this time, Loki and Iron Man were fighting back and forth, and they were really not pretending. His frontal combat power is limited, and he may not be able to beat Iron Man, not to mention Captain America and Black Widow. Fortunately, his divine body is strong and he can resist directly. Although his injuries are increasing, he is not serious yet. There was no way to go on like this. Loki saw the opportunity and resisted the captain's shield slap in the face, sending a divine light towards the Black Widow's abdomen. The divine light passed through the body, leaving a wound as big as a bowl of ocean on the Black Widow's body. She almost broke into two pieces and fell to the ground. Natasha, the American captain, was shocked and hurriedly stopped attacking and came over to check. Iron Man said coldly, "Don't worry about her, keep fighting, don't let Loki escape." The captain said angrily, "Do you have any humanity that you don't even care about your teammates?" Iron Man kept his hands on his hands and whispered, "Humph, old antique." The captain half knelt beside Black Widow, held her hand, and said, "Natasha, you have to hold on." With this injury, the captain knew that there was probably no chance of survival, but other than these comforting words, he didn't know what to say. During World War II, he bravely killed the enemy and saved countless comrades, but countless comrades still died beside him. The captain felt sad for a moment, as if he had returned to the World War II era, and held the Black Widow's hand tightly. Natasha's face was twisted in pain, and she said, "Don't worry about me." The captain said, "Natasha, how can I ignore you? Although we have known each other for a short time, I am your comrade. If you have anything to say, just say it and I will remember it for you. Let go quickly. If you don't let go, I will really die." What? The captain felt that Natasha was using her last strength to try to break free from her hand, so she quickly let go. With difficulty, she took out a bottle of green potion from her tactical bag and drank it. A green light lit up the wound, and in the blink of an eye, the missing flesh and blood at the hole grew back. However, the clothes were not restored. Black Widow reveals her firm and elastic belly and lower waist, and with the sweat and dirt on her face, she has an alternative appeal. Black Widow jumped up from the ground and continued to attack Loki. The captain was stunned. "Ah, well. I'm sorry just now." No wonder Iron Man told himself not to worry about her. It turned out there was such a magical potion. Instead, he came over and held her hand, almost killing his teammates. The captain felt a little guilty. Was he so far behind the times that he didn't even know about this magical potion? "Stop talking nonsense. Come and fight." Seeing Black Widow resurrected with full health, Loki was secretly frightened. Where did such a perverted potion come from? You're going to beat yourself up like this. If you continue like this, you will be able to resurrect with full health in an instant if you injure them, but your injuries will become more and more severe, and you may capsize in the gutter. After thinking about this, Loki decided not to fight anymore. With a flash of his body, he transformed into a dozen locusts and fled in all directions at the same time. Black Widow waved her hand and shot 3 darts, and the 3 illusions disappeared immediately. The American captain's shield flew away from his hand, and flew back to his hand in a large arc, scattering the 5 illusions. Iron Man is much more efficient here. He uses his eyes to operate the position on the miniature screen. The lasers on his body are divided into more than a dozen beams, covering all Loki. Oops! Loki screamed. All illusions disappeared, and the last real body was hit by the laser. But at this time, he was already more than 10 meters away from the 3 Iron Man men. He jumped a few times, climbed over the outer wall, and disappeared from everyone's eyes. On the way back, Iron Man did not fly alone, the 3 of them sat together in the Quinjet. Black Widow said coldly, "With his strength, there is no way he can kill my husband." The captain asked, "My condolences. However, I still have to take the liberty to ask, who is your husband? Is he strong? The photo you saw on the mothership is him." As for his strength, Iron Man sneered, "If he were here, he wouldn't even dare to come to Earth to cause trouble if he gave Loki 100 courages. It turns out to be a fallen hero. No wonder so many people on the mothership posted his face everywhere," the captain thought to himself. But, is this avatar the wrong choice? The portrait of the fallen hero should be a solemn one, right? The smile in that photo always feels weird. Iron Man said, "If he is as strong as he is today, even if he adds the magic that can blacken others, regardless of whether apocalypse is there or not, it will definitely not be enough to occupy the Earth. Unless..." The 3 of them looked at each other and thought at the same time. "He has helpers." The Quinjet accelerated and flew towards the mothership. They wanted to go back and discuss with the director to find out what Loki's conspiracy was. According to the original plot, Loki should have pretended to surrender on this fighter plane, but due to the invisible influence of Apocalypse, the timeline here has been seriously deviated. In the unknown time and space, the Time Variation Manager looked at the sacred timeline and found another branch, and couldn't help but feel dizzy. The mysterious man who made the Guardian of Time appear in person and was designated as an outlaw, caused serious interference to the Earth's timeline even though he was far away on the other side of the universe. If this continues, the sacred timeline will collapse sooner or later. A group of employees of the Space and Time Bureau are discussing hard to see if they can come up with a plan to stabilize the sacred timeline without offending the noble outlaw. Black Widow, Iron Man, and Captain America soon returned to the space carrier. He immediately reported the battle to Fury and the speculation that Loki might have helpers. Fury gathered everyone for a meeting to discuss. "Hill, please immediately list the places Loki has robbed these days and see if there is any correlation." "Yes." Detailed reports on the cases are listed on the screen, and then the computer program automatically analyzes them, constantly looking for correlations from locations, people, casualties, etc. Dr. Banner suddenly said, "There's something strange here. Loki robbed precious metal banks, and the stolen metals were all iridium." Iron Man frowned, thought for a while and said, "Iridium has many uses. As far as I know, there are at least dozens of industrial applications that use it. However, these are probably not what Loki wants. He doesn't want to come to Earth to open a factory, does he? Then, there is only one more reliable possibility left. Particle physics uses iridium in the production process of antiprotons. High-intensity proton beams are directed at a conversion target that must be very dense. It can more stably withstand the temperature rise caused by the radiating particle beam. Shockwave. Banner's eyes lit up when he heard this. If there is enough energy to open the Einstein-Rosen bridge, then iridium will be an essential element, and it can be used as a stabilizing buffer. Ahem. Fury gestured. Speak humanly. Dr. Banner and Iron Man looked at each other, and Iron Man said, "You are an expert in this field, so let's talk about it." Dr. Banner was not polite and said, "The Einstein-Rosen bridge is what most people call a wormhole. Opening it requires an astronomical amount of energy. Moreover, during the opening process of the wormhole, antiprotons will be generated. If not processed, these antiprotons will cause the wormhole to be unstable." The captain of the United States said, "Wait a minute, I don't understand the theories you mentioned. If I understand correctly, if Loki wants to open a wormhole and let helpers from another world come over, then, two conditions are needed. One is energy, the second is stability. Energy can be provided by the universe Rubik's Cube, stability can be achieved by the iridium element. In other words, he already has all the conditions." That's right. Everyone fell silent suddenly, realizing that something was in trouble. Just one Loki caused chaos in major cities in Europe. There were many casualties and it was already a headache. If his helpers come again, I'm afraid the Earth will fall completely. According to Fury's reasoning, Loki's helper may be the peerless powerful man who killed Thor in Apocalypse. Once he comes, no one on the Earth can stop him. Fury ordered, "Hill, I want you to do everything possible to find traces of Loki. Use all surveillance, cameras, and spy satellites on the Earth if necessary. Drive Banner, Tony, the task of tracking gamma rays and finding the cosmic cube will be left to you. I will requisition all gamma ray detection instruments within my authority for your use. Steve, Natasha, you are always on call." Yes. However, the more anxious they were, the less fruitful they were. After Loki was beaten 3 times by Iron Man, Black Widow, and Captain America, he suffered a huge loss and did not dare to show up again. Even the blackened Hawkeye, who had been robbing iridium elements everywhere under Loki's instructions, has now lost his trace. Fury became increasingly uneasy, indicating that they had taken enough iridium. There must be arrangements being made at this time, and when he is discovered again, it may be the time when the wormhole opens. For 2 days, the entire Earth suddenly returned to calm. Fury knew that this was the calm before the storm. Once broken, it would be a devastating disaster. At this moment, the space carrier's alarm sounded. Do. Level S alert. Attention, all teams, there is an unknown object descending on our mothership. Weapons at the ready. Staff on standby. I saw 2 figures standing in the void above the sky mothership, surrounded by thunder and lightning, accompanied by dark clouds. It's none other than Thor in Apocalypse. Because one more person needs to be teleported, it takes longer for God King Odin to prepare the dark energy, which results in a delay of several days compared to the time in the original plot when Thor arrived alone. In the original plot, Thor arrived when Loki faked his surrender and took the Quinjet fighter back to the mothership. Because of a misunderstanding, he even had a fight with Iron Man and Captain America in the mountains. Now, at Apocalypse's request, they located the space carrier and descended directly to the sky. The space carrier is invisible to Earth's technology, but to Heimdall, it is no different than a light bulb. Apocalypse stretched forward with one hand and emitted a divine light shield, blocking all the bullets and warheads of the defensive automatic weapons. There was a nervous look below, and the cannon muzzles were raised and pointed at them. Although Apocalypse is not afraid, he is one of his own, so there is no need to destroy his own weapons, otherwise the stingy Fury will yell again. Soon, surveillance cameras located their images. Ah, it's the Oriental man in the photo. Already some of the nymphomaniac technicians started screaming. When the alarm was lifted, Apocalypse and Thor slowly descended. Thor flies with the help of Thor's hammer, while Apocalypse flies completely physically, a skill that even Thor is envious of. You know, although many gods and powerful men are powerful, they have never been able to learn to fly. Physical flight is not as simple as it seems. Loki, who often told mortals that he was a god, could not fly. When Thor did not have a hammer, He could only use the power of thunder and lightning to soar briefly, and he could not fly. Most of the superheroes are unable to fly physically, including the Scarlet Witch, a heaven-defying powerhouse, who can only briefly rise into the air with the help of the power of the ground, not fly. Only a few strange people, such as Vision and Captain Marvel, possess the ability to fly physically as soon as they appear in the world. As soon as the two landed, people who heard the news gathered around them. Iron Man wore a suit and flew the fastest. When he saw Apocalypse, his eyes turned red and he stepped forward to give Apocalypse a solid hug. "Man, I didn't expect to see you again." Tianchi sighed. "Yes, it's been a long time since I left." "It's been a long time, it feels like a century." Gradually, Apocalypse felt something was wrong. "Iron Man, why did you hold me for so long? Everyone around is watching. If you don't think it's embarrassing, I still want to save face." The American captain lowered his voice and asked Fury, "Director, are you sure this person named Apocalypse is married to Natasha?" Seeing the jealous Black Widow beside him, Apocalypse couldn't bear it any longer. "I had returned from afar, and my beloved wife hadn't even hugged him yet." "Hey, Tony, get out of here." Seeing Apocalypse push Tony away, Black Widow pounced on him without saying anything, kissing her until she almost suffocated. "It lasted so long that even if the people around me were Westerners, they couldn't stand it anymore." "Ahem," Fury said. "Don, welcome back." Apocalypse had no choice but to separate from Black Widow. When they came back this time, everyone seemed to be particularly enthusiastic. "Long time no see, Director," Fury said. "Let me introduce him first. This is Dr. Banner. I believe you know him." Banner was polite, shook hands and said, "Mr. Tang, I finally see you in person. Your smile is normal." "What the hell is a normal smile?" Tianchi didn't have time to ask, so he shook hands. "This is my deputy, Agent Hill." Hill is a tall and slender beauty with a refreshing and handsome temperament, capable and dashing, and a heroic appearance. She is a completely different type from the Black Widow. "This is Captain America, Steve Rogers." This was the first time Tianchi saw the Captain of the United States in person. He looked carefully. He was tall, handsome, and upright. He was wearing an old-fashioned tight-fitting combat uniform, exactly like the Captain in his memory. At this time, Thor came closer, tilted his head, glanced sideways at the Captain, and whispered, "Tang, is this the American buttocks you are talking about? It doesn't seem very good." "Who are all the people present?" No matter how low the voice was, I listened to every word. The Captain of the United States had a dark look on his face. "Who are these people? Do you know them yourself? Why are you suddenly discussing your butt?" When the people around heard what Thor said, they all turned their attention to the Captain's butt, wondering if it was really that up. Suddenly, the Captain felt itchy and hot in the back. In full view of the crowd, he couldn't touch it, so he had to pretend to be careless and block it with his shield. "Ahem, hello, everyone." Tianchi took a few steps away from the God of Thunder and greeted everyone. "I'm not very familiar with this guy." Entering inside, I found that my profile picture was posted everywhere, and some photos also had some small flowers posted on them. Tianchi was confused now. Isn't his information confidential? Or is it that when I traveled through the universe, I took the wrong timeline? Thor envied. "Don, I didn't expect you to be so popular on Earth. I don't have anyone posting my photos in Asgard." Then he said to Agent Hill, "Hey, Beauty, can you ask who is responsible for the photo?" "I, the Prince of Asgard and the God of Thunder, may you consider putting my photo up?" Hill rolled his eyes at him and said, "Everyone thinks Mr. Tang is dead, and the photo is to commemorate him. Are you sure you want to hang it up?" It's not impossible." After the two sides exchanged information, all the doubts were solved. Fury knew that Loki didn't have a strong man who could kill Apocalypse, so he felt relieved a little. Now that there were two more powerful men, Thor and Apocalypse, Fury finally let go of his worries. As long as Loki dares to show his head, Fury dares to tell him why the flowers are so red. Since they have nothing to do, Apocalypse and Black Widow are busy having fun and replenishing their passion over the past 2 years. "Don, keep your voice down, the rooms here are not soundproof." "What are you afraid of? It's not me who screamed. HMPH. You are so bad." Chapter 71. The two adhered to the concept that as long as I am not embarrassed, others will be embarrassed, and created a magical sound all night. This area was filled with women's rooms. Hill, who lived nearby, tossed and turned, covering his ears and enduring the torture all night. After the exercise, Tianqi rarely had a sweet sleep. Suddenly, boom, boom, there were two loud noises, and the space carrier shook violently. The alarm sounded, and everyone ran out at once. Everyone, be careful, Loki invades. Apocalypse opened his eyes and thought to himself, Loki is really a ghost. When they came out, there was already chaos outside, with Fury and Hill giving constant instructions in the control hall. Fury said into the intercom, Tony, 2 turbine fans have been blown up. You go to repair them, otherwise the mothership will crash. There's no problem with me. Is that guy Tianqi still awake in Roro Township? Ahem, hey, Tony. I'm here, then I'll leave it to you Loki. Hill quickly called up the surveillance camera, and saw Loki slowly appearing from the side of a Quinjet on the screen, smiling evilly at the camera, and then disappeared. Hill said, the Quinjet that came back a few days ago must have been manipulated by Loki, and now he is sabotaging it inside the mothership. Mr. Tang, I'm sorry to bother you. Don't let him go to the power reactor. Give it to me. Tianqi nodded, closed his eyes slightly, and began to sense every move on the mothership. Suddenly a gust of wind suddenly rose and disappeared in front of Hill's eyes. At this time, Loki was in a state of invisibility, and his purpose was indeed what Hill had guessed, which was to detonate the nuclear power reactor. Once successful, it is equivalent to exploding a nuclear bomb inside the mothership, and the damage can be said to be devastating. In the original plot, Loki had a teasing mentality and preferred the pleasure of watching everyone being manipulated by him without knowing it. But now he failed to pretend to surrender, and he suffered a lot from Apocalypse to Black Widow's mixed 3-person attack. His heart was full of resentment, and he no longer felt like teasing, so he just sabotaged it and taught S.H.I.E.L.D. a lesson. The nuclear power plant was right in front of him, and a cold smile appeared on Loki's lips. Just as he was about to take action, a voice suddenly came. Loki, long time no see. It's you. Loki was shocked. The person who came was none other than Tianqi. Since he was here, his brother must be here too. Loki never expected that the original estimate of repairing the Rainbow Bridge would be as short as 1 year or as long as 3 years. Such a long time is enough for him to beat the Earth to pieces. When the time comes for the Earthling whom my father saved to return, it will be so satisfying to see his desperate expression. My father is really willing to spend his money and actually use dark energy to send you back to Earth. Okay, I surrender. Loki slowly raised his hands, and as soon as the scepter in his hand reached his chest, there was a sudden G sound and a yellow light emitted. The yellow light was not directed at Apocalypse, but at the nuclear reactor. A proud smile appeared on the corner of Loki's mouth. There is a high temperature of tens of millions of degrees in the center of the nuclear explosion, which can melt all materials. No matter how strong you are, they will all be turned into elementary particles. It's a pity that he met Apocalypse. Of course, the moment he said he wanted to surrender, Apocalypse was already on guard, and instantly transformed and blocked the yellow light. I thought it was just an ordinary divine attack, but I didn't expect a powerful force to press down on me, as if I was standing in front of a star, with boundless power. Apocalypse was caught off guard, and his feet carved 2 long iron grooves on the hard alloy floor. He didn't stop until his back touched the nuclear reactor. It's not your power. He has gone through 9 times of eternal fire refinement and 9 repairs, and his divine body has been completed. In the past 2 years, his cultivation has made rapid progress, and he has become many times stronger than before. Even if Loki has made some progress, he cannot be so exaggerated. Apocalypse looked at it and saw that the light on Loki's scepter was dim, and the place where the Mind Stone was originally stored was empty. It turns out to be the power of the Mind Stone. Although the Mind Stone is not known for its destructive power, it is an Infinity Stone after all. Loki only borrowed part of it and it is already so powerful. If it weren't Apocalypse who came to intercept, but if Thor came instead, he might have succeeded. However, looking at the holes in his scepter, it was obvious that he only borrowed power and did not bring his true body. As expected of the god of trickery, he is indeed cautious. Loki looked up to the sky and laughed. Do it again, let's see if you can catch it. As soon as he finished speaking, another ray of yellow light shot out. But the people suddenly transformed into a dozen or so people and ran towards the surrounding passages. Apocalypse patted away the yellow light. This time, it was just Loki's disguise of divine power, not the real power of the Mind Stone. Apocalypse had already sensed it. Seeing a dozen locusts running away at the same time, Apocalypse did not chase any of them, but grabbed the void ahead with his right hand. A human figure gradually appeared from the air. Needless to say, it was of course Loki. A few days ago, Loki fought against the Black Widow trio and suffered a big loss while escaping. This time he learned a lesson and transformed into more than a dozen avatars while becoming invisible at the same time. Unexpectedly, Tianchi saw through it at a glance and was caught. Loki was about to cry, but he couldn't help but wonder why he hadn't won against the Earthlings once. From the time when the destroyer was sent down, to when the father chose to save the Earth instead of saving himself, and then the subsequent attempts to surrender, escape, and destroy the space carrier, all failed. Apocalypse looked at Loki, with murderous intent hidden in his eyes. This Loki seemed to have done nothing good from beginning to end, and countless people on Earth died at his hands. It's better to kill him now, since he's not afraid of changing the timeline anyway. Thinking of this and just about to take action, Loki seemed to sense this murderous intention and shouted, "I am Thor's brother." I have to say that Loki really understands human nature. Tianchi sighed secretly after hearing this. Thor regards himself as a brother, and Asgard makes him a prince, and uses the eternal fire to refine his body. Although it is utilitarian in nature, the favor is real. It's really unjustifiable to kill their relatives rashly without repaying them now. Thor, in particular, still regards Loki as his younger brother. Now that he has been captured, it is expected that he will not be able to start another New York war. Catch him first, and then ask the God of Thunder. As a result, a divine force blocked Loki's ability to move, and he was lifted onto the deck like a chicken. At this time, the other approaches have basically been solved. Some miscellaneous fish soldiers can naturally be dealt with by the escort force on the mother ship. Because of Loki's deliberate sabotage, one more engine was destroyed this time than in the original plot, attracting the power of Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America. As for Hawkeye, Black Widow was being tied up while panting. Hawkeye's strength mainly lies in arrows. In frontal close combat, he is weaker than the modified Black Widow. Whether in the original plot or now, he loses to Black Widow without any suspense. Throwing Loki on the deck, Apocalypse rushed forward, took Hawkeye, and said to Black Widow, "You take a rest for a while, leave Barton to me." As he spoke, he gently pressed his fingers on Hawkeye's forehead, and a surge of divine power slowly seeped into it. The power of the Mind Stone that controls Hawkeye is very weak, and it is very different from the one he just fought in the nuclear reactor, but this power is entangled in his brain, and Apocalypse has to be extremely careful. After a while, Hawkeye's dark eyes returned to normal, and his consciousness had returned. "Thank you. You're welcome." Black Widow supported Hawkeye and said, "Barton, do you remember what happened?" Hawkeye nodded. "I remember, I seem to have hurt a lot of people." Tianchi said, "You don't need to feel guilty about this. You are controlled by the Mind Stone, and these crimes should not be placed on you. The culprit is over there." At this time, the problems of all parties were resolved. Thor, Iron Man, Captain America, Fury, Hill, etc. all gathered around and looked at Loki. Fury was secretly frightened. If Apocalypse hadn't returned in time, the space carrier would never have been spared, and everyone would have died in a nuclear explosion. The god of trickery is still the god of trickery. Although he did not fake his surrender to the mothership, he still left his mark on the Quinjet. Thor sternly said, "Loki, you are really too willful. What qualifications do you have to teach me a lesson?" Loki said with a sad smile, "My father would rather save that Earthling than save me. You, Odin, and Frigga are not my relatives." Thor was speechless for a moment. He felt deeply guilty about this matter. He would rather his father save Loki than him, which made him feel better. Hill kicked him and said, "Loki, right. You are suspected of causing a large number of casualties on Earth. We will try you in accordance with the law, up to the death penalty." "Hey," Thor shouted, "he is my brother, please be respectful. The number of deaths on Earth caused directly or indirectly by him is probably more than 3,000. Ah, well, he's adopted, and we're not that close. Even so, it is impossible for Thor to really let Loki die here. No matter how kind Thor is, he still has selfish motives. He still regards Loki as his younger brother and cannot let anyone kill him. At this time, Iron Man looked around and said, "Are we missing one person here?" When everyone took a look, Dr. Banner was missing. No, it should be said, Hulk. Roar. A dull roar came from below, followed by a chaotic, ping ping pong pong, sound, and I don't know how many equipment were damaged. Fury stroked his braised egg head and felt a headache. He was about to ask Apocalypse to stop the Hulk. Suddenly there was a loud boom, and the Hulk crashed through the deck and jumped up from below. There are pictures of Apocalypse everywhere below. The Hulk has no way out but the ceiling, so he crashes through the floors and jumps up. Oops, Loki screamed. He was right at the Hulk's foothold, and his huge feet pressed his face into the steel plate of the deck. You savage guy, ugly beast, take your feet away quickly. The Hulk glanced down and said in the voice of the subwoofer, "Huh. Reptile. Enough, I've had enough of you Earthlings. I am a god, of the bloodline of frost giants, and the adopted son of Asgard's god King Odin. The lowly bloodline of Earthlings is not worthy of." Boom, 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 boom. The Hulk stomped on him and growled, "Little reptile, you are very noisy, you are very noisy." The Hulk's random stomping did little physical damage to Loki, but the mental insult was tens of millions of times greater than the physical damage. If crotch humiliation is the ultimate humiliation for a man, then what is 10 times worse than this is crotch humiliation without pants. As soon as the Hulk transformed, the green thing underneath him came out again. Originally, apart from being a little jarring, it was nothing serious. After all, this is the West, so everyone is not surprised. But Loki's vision at this time was going to end his life. Lying on the ground unable to move, looking at that big pile of things looking down at me and dangling around, my spirit completely collapsed. Loki's face turned pale, feeling that the insults he had received over the past 1,000 years combined were not as harmful as today. You, kill me if you can. Who, little reptile, then I will kill you. The Hulk seemed to understand Loki's words. He stretched out his hands and lifted Loki's legs up. Roar, he tore him in half forcefully. Thor shouted, "Loki." Although Loki is known as a god, he will still die if he is torn in half. In the original plot, he was killed by Thanos after his neck was strangled. Thor rushed over, only to find that Loki, who was torn in half, did not have a drop of blood coming out. Instead, he slowly turned into a puff of ash and disappeared into the air. "It's a clone," Thunder God shouted. "The clone is different from the illusion. The illusion is just a false light and shadow, but the clone exists in reality, like a real person, and has a certain strength. Of course, the level of strength depends on the specific strength of the subject. The clone is controlled by the main body, and thoughts and perspectives are shared with the main body." The enhanced version of crotch humiliation just now was truly transmitted to Loki's main body. This feeling can never be washed away. No wonder Loki just asked the Hulk to kill him. He couldn't bear the humiliation and hurriedly cut off the perspective with the clone. I didn't expect Loki to make such rapid progress in the past 2 years and become a clone. Thor was both happy and troubled. The dead one is a clone, which means that Loki is not dead, but it also means that he is still hiding in some corner and continues to harm human beings. Apocalypse stepped forward and suppressed the Hulk personality, and then a staff member immediately brought a blanket over. Looking at the Hulk's naked body, Apocalypse thought, it seems like he has to find a chance to make a pair of super elastic underwear for the Hulk, so as not to be so eye-catching every time he transforms. As for Loki's clone, Apocalypse has no memory of it. This is the first time he has seen it. Could it be his own butterfly effect? I was originally confused as to why Loki dared to attack the nuclear reactor at such a short distance. Not to mention Loki, Apocalypse himself had no confidence in surviving at such a short distance. It turns out that he is a clone and is not afraid of death. At this moment, a huge blue light suddenly shot up into the sky in the distance. The blue energy pillar shot into the sky, and a hole slowly opened, revealing the dark background of the universe on the other side. It's the wormhole that connects the other side of the universe. Loki saw the arrival of Apocalypse and Thor, and the clone's sneak attack failed, so he knew it was time to activate the Cosmic Cube and let Thanos' army come over. Countless Chitauri troops, who had been waiting for a long time, swarmed in like locusts. The Chitauri soldiers rode in their personal airships, passed through the wormhole, and carried a strange long energy gun, killing everyone on sight. Coupled with the energy cannon on the airship, cars on the ground were blown away with one shot. Suddenly, screams continued throughout New York, explosions occurred, and people fled one after another. After a while, the blue energy pillar became larger and larger, the wormhole opened wider, and a huge mechanical dragon slowly entered. The entire body of the mechanical dragon is made of unknown alien metal and is dark copper in color. Buildings are knocked down wherever it passes, and half of the building can be shattered with a flick of its tail. Its body also contains many Chitauri soldiers. When it passes a building, it immediately jumps out and attacks the humans inside. The God of Thunder murmured, "Brother, you are in big trouble now." The alarm was immediately sounded on the mothership, and everyone was ready for battle. Tianchi said, "I'll go find Loki's real body first. The infinite gems in his hand are the key to closing the wormhole. You are responsible for the rest." After saying that, Apocalypse took off from the space carrier and flew towards the wormhole. In the original plot, the Infinity Stones were embedded in Loki's scepter, but now that the scepter has fallen on the Helicarrier, the Mind Stone has disappeared, and it must still be in Loki's hands. Iron Man and Thor were able to fly by themselves and took off first. The remaining Black Widow, Hawkeye, and Captain America quickly boarded the Quinjet and prepared to set off. Fury said anxiously, "Wait, bring Dr. Banner with you, we don't need him now." Banner originally wanted to find the Cosmic Cube through gamma rays, but now the Cosmic Cube is swaggering under the energy column, and the search is meaningless. Banner said gratefully, "Thank you, Director. However, there is a war going on there, so I'll stay on the mothership. After the war is over, I will return to the country of my third brother." The mothership is huge and does not fly very fast. It is not suitable for entering the war zone directly. It is similar to an aircraft carrier at sea and is more suitable as a fighter platform and command center. Fury smiled and said, "We don't need Banner, but we need Hulk." With that said, he took the reluctant Banner onto the Quinjet. The fighter jet soon arrived over the war zone, and Black Widow opened the hatch. Banner, who was sitting by the door, realized something was wrong and shouted, "What do you want to do? Don't do this again." Black Widow said coldly, "Barton, throw him down. Do not do this." Then, there was a loud boom, and when he landed on the ground, it was the Hulk. Roar. The Hulk's roar attracted countless nearby Chitauri soldiers to attack. Thor, Iron Man, Black Widow, Hawkeye, Barton, Captain America and others all used their own abilities to continuously eliminate the Chitauri soldiers. Hawkeye ascends high and focuses on airships. Thor has a hammer and lightning group attack, blocking the wormhole and launching his ultimate move. Captain America went around rescuing civilians. Black Widow can only use guerrilla tactics on the ground, targeting lone Chitauri soldiers to kill them. As soon as these superheroes entered the battlefield, they immediately stabilized the situation and civilian casualties were immediately reduced. But at the same time, it also attracted more Chitauri soldiers and mechanical dragons to attack. On Tianchi's side, he flew directly under the energy pillar, which was on the roof of a building. However, it is not the Stark Tower where Iron Man is located in the original plot. Apparently after Loki was beaten up by the Iron Man trio, he knew that Iron Man was not easy to mess with, so he did not dare to blatantly come to Stark Tower to cause trouble for fear of being discovered. What emits the blue energy column is a strange device. The cosmic Rubik's Cube is placed inside the device and serves as an energy source. Eric was watching over him. Apocalypse went up and put his hand on Eric's forehead to expel the control energy of the Mind Stone. "Is it you?" Eric woke up. "Oh no, what have I done?" Tianchi said, "It's not your fault, Dr. Eric. Where is Loki?" "I don't know. He just asked me to activate the device and then disappeared." "Then get out of here quickly." Before leaving, Eric pointed at the device and said, "It generates a protective energy shield that cannot be closed. Only energy from the same source can break through the energy shield." "I know this." However, Tianchi still wanted to try and stepped forward slowly. Punched towards the device. A blue energy shield blocked Apocalypse's fist. The energy shield is invisible and has no quality, but it is like hitting Hong Zhang Dalu. There is a huge collision sound and a huge sound wave is stirred up. The surrounding dust is like a wave, sweeping away in all directions. Huge energy was transmitted to the building, and the whole building suddenly shook violently. Apocalypse frowned. The Infinity Stones were indeed extraordinary. Although he was only throwing a tentative punch and his strength was less than 1/10, judging from the strength of the energy shield, even if he punched with all his strength, he could not break it. Besides, there are many ordinary people in this building now. Another punch, but if the energy shield is not broken, the building may collapse first. It seems that we have to go to Loki. At this time, Loki had long lost the arrogance in the original plot. When he saw the apocalypse coming, he didn't know where to hide. However, Apocalypse was sure that Loki must be near the energy column. With his twisted mentality, he must see all this with his own eyes, see people wailing, and see the earth being destroyed, before he can be happy. Apocalypse randomly chooses a direction to fly and adjusts his divine power to his 5 senses. As long as Loki is within his sensing range, he absolutely cannot hide. Although Loki's invisibility technique is magical, it must have fluctuations in divine power. Loki's cold divine power characteristics are really easy to identify. Many Chitauri soldiers fired at Apocalypse. Apocalypse turned his palm lightly and shot out countless rays of divine power in all directions. Wherever they passed, Chitauri soldiers fell one after another like bugs under the lamp, and the streets were densely covered with them. Seeing how powerful Apocalypse was, Chitauri immediately mobilized 2 mechanical dragons to coordinate with countless soldiers to attack. Seeing this, Tianchi stopped using his divine power. When the mechanical dragon pounced on him, he punched him head-on. 10 times the power of the Hulk. Boom! The body of the mechanical dragon weighing several thousand tons stagnated and seemed to be stationary in the air. Then, starting from the head, metal pieces all over the body broke and flew, and the explosion extended to the tail in an instant. The Chitauri soldiers on the mechanical dragon were penetrated by countless metal fragments and fell to the ground with the metal rain in the sky. The other mechanical dragon was obviously controlled by someone, and it quickly turned around. Now that it's here, how could Tianchi let it go again? He accelerated his body and reached the tail of the mechanical dragon in an instant. Pushing his hands down, the hard alien metal penetrated directly like paper soaked in water. Apocalypse held the core keel of the mechanical dragon in his hands and spun 3 times in the air. Roar! Under the huge force, the mechanical dragon weighing thousands of tons could no longer control its body shape and flew towards the blue energy column. The mechanical dragon's body passed through the energy pillar, and any part it touched was melted into nothingness and immediately broke into 2 pieces. Seeing this situation, Apocalypse shook his head. It seemed that it was impossible to use something to forcibly block the energy column. However, Apocalypse didn't expect to succeed, but since the mechanical dragon was delivered to his door, he just gave it a try. Suddenly, Tianchi sensed something strange. He immediately turned around and flew towards a remote street. The streets here have just been cleared, and there are basically no people and Chitauri soldiers. Apocalypse looked down and saw 4 strange people below. Hulk, Iron Man, Captain America, and a yet-to-be-appeared Ant-Man. The Hulk looked the same at this time, but his face lacked the eternally angry expression, as if he was a different person. The key is that he is wearing pants. As for Iron Man, his face has changed a lot. The American captain no longer wears the old-fashioned hood and has a handsome haircut. As for Ant-Man, wearing a dark red battle suit, this was the first time Apocalypse saw him in person, and he was no different from what he remembered. Apocalypse knows that they should have traveled through time in Avengers 4. Didn't you change the future? It shouldn't be, Thanos isn't that hard to fight. Apocalypse descended and suddenly appeared in front of them, asking, "Where am I?" The 4 people were startled, and then breathed a sigh of relief when they saw it was Tianchi. Ant-Man said, "Hey, Don, I didn't expect to see you here." Iron Man said, "Don, I knew it, you could tell that we came from the future." Anyone who can ask, "Where am I?" is either a fool or a philosopher or prophet. Obviously, when Iron Man heard this, he knew it was the Apocalypse of this time and space. Hulk Banner said, Dawn, time travel is not going back to the past, but traveling in different times. Telling you where you are in our timeline has no impact on your time. Tianqi frowned. Could it be said that there was a new fork in the sacred timeline? In this branch line, he didn't defeat Thanos. But where were they separated? Since I traveled through time, it seems that not many key nodes have changed. Iron Man said. Tang, you should leave. If we have too much contact and reveal too much information, I am afraid that at this point, a new branch will be born. In the future, no one can say which branch we will take. Superior. Apocalypse doesn't know much about timelines, time travel, etc. But judging from the original plot, traveling through the past does not change the future, but creates a new timeline. For example, in the timeline in the original plot, Hulk Banner snapped his fingers and brought back all the people who had been turned into ashes. The people who came back were missing 5 years. This is completely different from the imagined change in the past. If there is only one timeline, then it should be like in the movie, The Butterfly Effect. Going back and changing any tiny fact will directly cause future mutations. In this case, Apocalypse doesn't want to interfere too much. He trusts what Iron Man says. Since it is not convenient for him to say it, it must be for the sake of the current reality. Just be more careful when facing Thanos in the future. Well, I wish you all the best. Can I help you with anything? It would be great if you had Pym particles. We seem to be on the wrong timeline. Now if we want to travel back to the original timeline, Pym particles are not enough. Ant-Man said. Tianqi didn't have the Pym material in his hand. After thinking about it, he scratched his hand on the roof of a car a few times and said calmly, I don't have it in my hand, but I believe you will find a way. Then, he turned around and flew away. Ant-Man shrugged. This guy Don is always so mysterious. Only the American captain, who had been silent, noticed Tianqi's movements on the roof of the car. Everyone took a closer look and saw that it read 1970. In the original plot, they were in a dilemma because they failed to get the gem they wanted in New York. Either admit defeat and go back directly, or take a risk and go to the time in 1970, not long after Dr. Pym discovered the Pym particle. Apocalypse didn't know which timeline they belonged to among the 4 people in front of him, but it seemed like they hadn't thought of it yet, so he reminded them. Seeing that the wormhole in the sky is getting bigger and bigger, if it is not closed in time, it will be even more troublesome when the space battleship passes through. At this moment, I suddenly heard the roar of the Hulk. Ha, 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 little reptile. I see you. Ha, 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 ha. Tianqi hurriedly accelerated to take a look. I saw Loki running away in front, and the Hulk chasing after him. Loki kept moving and changing directions, but the Hulk didn't care at all, and hit the wall directly through it. But Loki couldn't fly, so he couldn't get rid of the Hulk for a while. He had to turn into more than a dozen illusions and become invisible at times, but the Hulk seemed to have an intuition and could always find Loki's true whereabouts. Is this the destined fate between the two of them? Tianqi secretly asked. Loki's heart was really racing. He originally wanted to take revenge on the Hulk, but he didn't expect that the Hulk seemed to have a special intuition for him, and he suffered a big loss as soon as he came up. At this time, a Chitauri airship flew by. Loki shouted to the sky, "Come here, take me up." A Chitauri airship lowered rapidly. Loki made a feint, avoided the Hulk's attack, and jumped onto the airship. Roar! The Hulk roared and jumped dozens of meters high, but missed the target. Loki was secretly feeling proud when suddenly there was a bang sound, and the airship seemed to hit something and fell from the sky. Then his neck tightened and he was picked up by Apocalypse. "Where is the soul gem?" Tianqi asked. Loki's face was ferocious. "Ha ha 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 ha, I won't tell you, you will never be able to close the wormhole. The Earth is just waiting to be destroyed. Ha 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 ha." Tianqi said angrily. "Don't think that I won't dare to kill you as long as Thor is here." An imperceptible smile appeared on the corner of Loki's lips, and he said, "You don't need to kill me, I'll die for you." What? Boom. With a muffled sound, Loki in Apocalypse's hand turned into a ball of divine power and exploded. However, apart from blowing Apocalypse's clothes, it did no harm. It's actually a clone again. Tianqi knew that this was a bit of a problem. Loki used his clones twice. Although the clones had little strength, it showed that he was now very vigilant and had hidden his true body in the Mind Stone deeply. It was probably unlikely that he would be found in a short time. When the wormhole expands to a wide enough level, alien warships will come over, and then the Earth will suffer catastrophe. Obviously, Loki also knew this, so he made such a noise just now. Although he is strong, he is not as perverted as Captain Marvel, who can destroy an entire fleet by himself. At this time, on the other side of the wormhole, countless space battleships were vaguely seen preparing to go out, densely filling the entire universe. At this moment, all the Avengers received Fury's message. Attention everyone, there are 2 nuclear bombs flying towards you. Tianchi subconsciously said, isn't it 1? 2. Repeat, it's 2. Fury added, the committee overstepped my authority and activated nuclear bombs. One bombed the wormhole and the other bombed the cosmic cube. They will arrive in 1 minute and 30 seconds. You, retreat. Obviously, what Tianchi saw and thought, the politicians on the committee also understood, the space battleship must not be allowed to come. Directly activate the nuclear bomb, the most powerful killer weapon in the hands of the Earth, and destroy the wormhole at the expense of a city. Otherwise, with the level of science and technology of the people on Earth, how could they possibly deal with these interstellar space battleships without even landing on Mars? In the original plot, 2 nuclear bombs were indeed activated, but one of the fighter planes was hit by Fury with an RPG and was unable to take off. Now, under the butterfly effect of the apocalypse, Fury did not stop one like the original plot for some reason. Iron Man said angrily, there are millions of people in New York City now. If a nuclear bomb explodes, 10 people may be turned into ashes immediately. How dare they? Then he said to Tianchi, I'm going to intercept one of them, Tang. I'll leave the other one to you. No problem. I saw 2 missiles in the distance, flying at twice the speed of sound, dragging long white exhaust gases, towards the center of New York. Iron Man used his suit to stick to the missile and held the missile towards the wormhole. Although Apocalypse can destroy the nuclear bomb on the spot, I don't know if it will detonate accidentally. Already in the city at this time, Apocalypse did not dare to take the risk, so he could only take the nuclear bomb to the wormhole like Iron Man. The 2 missiles quickly crossed the wormhole and rushed towards the Chitauri space battleship. Then, 2 fireballs lit up in space. The intense light was like 2 suns, illuminating the entire city through the wormhole and making it almost invisible. When the fireball disappeared, looking from a distance, I saw that except for the front one of the space battleships, which was slightly damaged, the entire fleet did not suffer any damage. Tianchi thought to himself, this is normal. In many science fiction movies and TV shows, nuclear bombs are regarded as the ultimate weapon of the Earth. As long as aliens come, no matter how big the warship is, they can be solved with nuclear bombs. But think about it carefully, how is this possible? The people on Earth have not even left their home planet, and their technological level is far behind those of the races that roam the universe. Nuclear bombs are a major killer in low-level civilizations, but alien races should have already had defense methods. They don't use nuclear bombs, maybe because nuclear bombs are too backward. Just like humans eliminated black powder. Alas, Fury's voice came, full of helplessness, you'd better retreat. New York City can't be saved. If New York is not sacrificed, I'm afraid humanity can't be saved. Protect yourselves first. In the next wave, there will be more than 10 nuclear bombs coming, which cannot be stopped. Currently, the only people who have the ability to intercept nuclear bombs are Apocalypse, Iron Man, and Thor. It is possible to deal with 3 or 5. Even Tianchi is unlikely to control more than 2 nuclear bombs at 5 times the speed of sound at the same time. Do we really want to watch an entire city with millions of people die at the hands of our own human weapons? Everyone felt a sense of sadness and a sense of powerlessness in their hearts. But given the current situation, this cold-blooded decision seems to be the most correct one. Even Iron Man and Captain America were silent. Just as everyone was preparing to retreat in tears, suddenly the voice of Apocalypse came from the headphones. Fury, give me 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, if you don't see hope, let the nuclear bomb take off again. Fury was silent for a moment and said, I will try my best. Whatever you want to do it as soon as possible. Thor yelled, Brother, what do you want to do? No one can penetrate the energy shield of the Infinity Stones. Tianqi said. I have to give it a try. With that said, he rose into the air and came to the side of the cosmic Rubik's Cube device. Apocalypse pressed his hand on the universal Rubik's Cube and slowly felt the energy shield of the Rubik's Cube. Although the energy shield is tough and indestructible, it has no offensive power. As long as you control your power, you will not be harmed. What Apocalypse wants to try is to absorb the energy of the cosmic Rubik's Cube. Ever since he became a god in Asgard and was able to practice divine power, magic and spells, he has been thinking about whether the infinite stones can be used for himself. After all, Captain Marvel just crashed once and accidentally absorbed part of the power of the space stone to become so abnormal. Tianqi is extremely greedy. If you could directly draw energy from the infinite gems, you wouldn't have to work so hard to find a way to break through the bottleneck. Moreover, the cosmic Rubik's Cube also has a special feature. It can also use appropriate scientific and technological instruments to derive energy, indicating that it can be utilized. As for whether the human body can absorb and strengthen it, it depends on the individual's nature. Apocalypse operates the method of cultivating divine power, and strives to find the frequency where his divine power resonates with the energy of the cosmic Rubik's Cube. 1 minute passed, 2 minutes passed, 3 minutes passed. Even with Apocalypse's strength and abnormal physique, he was sweating profusely and veins popped out. The energy level of the Infinity Stones is so high that it far exceeds Apocalypse's imagination. Black Widow, Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, Hawkeye, Fury, and even the Hulk are all looking anxiously at Apocalypse from afar. 4 minutes passed. The committee behind the scenes has put its finger on the red button, watching the countdown seconds, ready to launch a nuclear bomb at any time. Suddenly, Apocalypse's tense face suddenly relaxed. A burst of blue energy passed from the energy shield to Apocalypse. The energy is getting stronger and stronger, and Apocalypse is exuding blue light. It is worthy of being an infinite gem. The energy is so surging that there is no time to refine it. Tianqi looked up to the sky and smiled, pressing the energy shield with one hand and making a fist with the other hand. Roar! A blue energy fist print flew out from Tianqi's hand. When it first left your hand, it was only the size of a basketball. It became bigger as it flew upwards. By the time it crossed the wormhole, it was as big as a football field. The space battleship blocking the entrance of the wormhole was unable to hide, and the blue fist print silently covered it. In the universe, there is no sound transmitted by matter. Under the silence, the space battleship was silently melted by the blue energy and turned into cosmic dust. With one punch, a space battleship was destroyed. The second punch. The third punch. Apocalypse punched a dozen times in a row, and the space battleship blocked on the other side of the wormhole suddenly lit up in a silent sea of fire. Many battleships were only hit in half of their hulls, and the other half exploded, and then the explosion caused the hulls to crash into other space battleships, causing panic. No one knows how many ships were destroyed, but the Chitauri finally reacted and moved the warships away from the wormhole. For a moment, looking from the Earth's side, the wormhole was completely empty, leaving only sporadic debris. Everyone who is paying attention to the battle situation here is almost speechless. Just now I was abandoning Xiao Baoda, why did such a fierce person suddenly appear? Especially on the committee side, looking at the big screen, their fingers were stuck on the red button and they forgot to take it away. Just now, 2 nuclear bombs couldn't blow up the alien warships, but he actually punched them one by one, like hitting a toy ship. What kind of heaven-defying boxing technique is this? After a moment of reaction, he couldn't help but curse fury in his heart. You have such an incomparable strong man under your command. Please inform us as soon as possible. It will make us want to launch a nuclear bomb over you, and we will become a great villain. What's even more disgusting is that this peerless strongman said it would take 5 minutes, but the first 4 minutes really whetted our appetite, and we had to wait for the final countdown of 5 minutes before taking action. Could he be dissatisfied with our committee? Are you dissatisfied with our launch of nuclear bombs and disregard for civilian lives? The members of the committee couldn't help but shudder secretly at the thought of a strong man of this level being dissatisfied with him. However, it's not our fault, it's just that guy Fury kept secrets here and there, keeping secrets all day long. We didn't know you were there. The more senior members of the committee thought about it, the more they became confused. Anyway, they absolutely don't believe that 5 minutes ago, they had no ability to counterattack the space battleship, and 5 minutes later, they suddenly transformed and became a powerful person. Even mutation must have a process, right? It's not like they haven't seen some superpowers mutate. But this is not the end. The energy of the universe Rubik's Cube seemed to have found a way to vent, and it continued to flow towards Tianqi's hands. Tianqi naturally did not dare to let the energy be held in his body, so he had to punch it out one after another. Because the warships on the other side of the wormhole had all dodged, all the subsequent punches were in vain. Tianqi secretly thought, could this fist seal be able to turn freely like his own divine power? The reason why the divine power can turn around to attack the opponent is because it has its own divine consciousness and can be flexibly controlled to a certain extent. In this case, Tianqi tried to attach some spiritual consciousness to the fist seal. The next huge punch mark rushed through the wormhole and turned slowly, but only slightly, without hitting anything. It should be that there is too little spiritual consciousness, the fist seal is too strong, and the driving force is not enough. One more punch. With this punch, Apocalypse tried his best and finally made the blue fist mark turn in a slight arc, hitting a battleship next to it, and immediately annihilated another one. The Chitauri, after panicking, finally fought back. A small spaceship quickly passed through the wormhole, dropped into a round black sphere, and then quickly moved away. The dark sphere fell silently towards the Earth. Apocalypse's heart palpitated immediately. This ball is not simple, and it must not be allowed to pass through the wormhole. With two, boom, punches on his hand, two huge fist seals were fired simultaneously, completely sealing the wormhole. Boom. The sky is a drum. The fist seal is a mallet. A peerless loud noise sounded at the entrance of the wormhole. The power of the blue fist seal was blocked for the first time, mixed with a dark energy, exploding in the sky. Fortunately, the energy level of the Infinity Stones was very high and the dark energy was not suppressed. It just turned into a dark cloud that spread out in the sky and extended to hundreds of kilometers away. The entire New York City suddenly fell into darkness, as if the end was coming. The only light is the blue energy pillar rising into the sky from Tianqi. At this moment, it is no longer a pillar of light that destroys the world, but a hope of salvation. People who were inexplicably trapped in the darkness saw a small figure under the Tianju. It seemed that they had sustenance in their hearts, and they did not become too disturbed and watched silently. In the explosion just now, most of the fist marks were blocked on the other side of the wormhole, and only a small amount leaked to the Earth. Even so, it was already so terrifying. Apocalypse couldn't imagine what kind of hell it would be like if that ball fell to the Earth. This power has far exceeded that of a nuclear bomb and has reached the level of planet destruction. As the explosion on the other side sounded, Apocalypse's eyes moved and he sensed the energy of another Infinity Stone. This energy is exactly the same as the one on Loki's scepter. It turns out that Loki's true body has long been hiding in the wormhole and is looking down at the Earth through the hole. If it hadn't been for the explosion of the star-destroying bomb, which forced him to use the energy of the Mind Stone to protect himself, Apocalypse would not have noticed it. He is indeed the god of trickery. What a good choice of hiding place. Now even if Tianqi knew that he was on the other side, he would never dare to cross the wormhole and kill him. Loki had obviously long ago deduced that if he stayed on Earth, it would be difficult to avoid Apocalypse's search, so he left another clone to cause trouble on the ground. The real body had already escaped the moment the wormhole opened. He was indeed hiding near the wormhole to watch the show, but he didn't expect that Apocalypse's infinite divine fist would destroy a space battleship. Loki was so frightened that he ran away in a hurry. When the star-killing bomb was blocked in the hole and exploded, the backlash energy swept away the remaining battleships. Fortunately, he had the Mind Stone given by Thanos, otherwise he would have turned into ashes. Now, he is the only one left alive as the Chitauri fleet prepares to conquer Earth. After the explosion, a spaceship flew from a distance and took Loki inside. Loki entered and was greeted by a slim alien that looked like a mummy. The skin is shriveled, and there is a sparse layer of white hair on the head. At first glance, it looks like the moldy hair of a mummy. The nose is raised high, but there are no nostrils. The person coming is none other than Thanos' most powerful general, Ebony Maw. How powerful is Ebony Throat? In Avengers 3, he came to Earth and faced the three powerful men Iron Man, Doctor Strange, and Master Wong, who joined forces and forcibly tied Doctor Strange onto the spaceship and took him away. Ebony Throat looked at Loki with sinister eyes and said, "Is this the Earth you said you can easily take down by one person?" Loki trembled, his thoughts changed quickly, and he said, "When I came, he was not here yet. He just came back from Asgard." HMPH. Isn't Asgard your home? I suspect that you colluded with Asgard to cause Thanos to lose an entire Chitauri army. Although the Chitauri are only the lowest level of the army under Thanos, someone must be responsible. You, just let Thanos decide life and death. Loki shouted. It's none of my business, it must be my brother Thor. Ebony Throat didn't listen at all. With a wave of his hand, Loki was immediately tied up by an invisible force, floating in the air like a rice dumpling, and was taken away by Ebony Throat. Apocalypse here. After waiting for a long time, the dark clouds covering a radius of hundreds of miles gradually dispersed, and when there was no movement in the wormhole, he slowly adjusted his divine power and injected the energy of the extracted space gems back into the energy shield. Then with a slight movement, the metal device inside suddenly shattered into pieces, leaving only the cosmic cube in the middle. The energy column soaring into the sky dissipated instantly. The wormhole was slowly and finally smoothed out by the surrounding space, leaving behind a gray sky. The Chitauri soldiers on the ground seemed to have lost their lives the moment the wormhole closed, falling to the ground and making no move. Holding the cosmic Rubik's Cube, Apocalypse took a closer look at the battle just now. This punch, powered by infinite gems, can be called the Infinite Divine Fist. Unfortunately, Infinite Fist currently has a lot of limitations. Firstly, there must be infinite gems as the energy source. Secondly, the energy is too huge and I cannot control it flexibly. Once he takes action, it will definitely be earth-shattering. If fighting on the ground, I am afraid that a single strike can destroy a city, so it cannot be used indiscriminately. We can only see if we can refine the energy of the infinite stones in the future and become as flexible as Captain Marvel. At this time, the staff on the space carrier and the civilians on the ground finally realized that the danger was over, and they burst into cheers. Countless people looked at the figure on the top of the building. They couldn't see clearly from a distance, but they were so majestic. Some religious people have even begun to pray for him. However, what most people, including Apocalypse, did not notice was that when the two infinite divine fists blocked the star bomb, a small amount of energy was outside the hole, crossed the wormhole, and flew into space. This ray of blue energy seemed to hit something in space, and a huge piece of metal suddenly appeared from the void. Then a huge spaceship emerged from stealth. The corners were cut off, causing the spacecraft to temporarily lose its stealth ability. Inside, a group of blue-skinned aliens with pointed ears and wrinkled faces screamed. Fortunately, someone took control of the spacecraft, and the spacecraft immediately returned to stealth. But at this time, many satellites have already observed the anomalies here. This spacecraft is known to only a few people on Earth, and Fury is one of them. They are the Skrulls who came with Captain Marvel more than 20 years ago. At this time, an adult Skrull looked at the Earth with lingering fear, thinking to himself, when did the Earth have such a peerless man besides Captain Marvel? Apocalypse, on his side, left with the cosmic Rubik's Cube. This behavior caused a headache for the Time Variation Administration. Originally, the original plot was that after the victory of the war, Thor returned to Asgard with Loki and the Tesseract. The spiritual scepter stayed on the Earth, and finally became Vision. Now, the timeline has changed drastically. Apocalypse himself has comprehended the infinite divine fist, and it is impossible to hand over the cosmic Rubik's Cube to anyone else, and no one is more qualified than him to keep the cosmic Rubik's Cube. As for the Mind Stone, with Loki going to the other side of the wormhole, we don't know if Vision will be born in the future. However, these Apocalypse are too lazy to care. Just give the Time Bureau a headache. In addition, the system also gave Tianchi a new surprise. At the moment the wormhole closed, a series of ding 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 beeps reminded him of the number of people he had saved, as well as the increased trust of all superheroes in him, which brought about the sharing of luck. The trust level of the Captain of the United States, who was still very unfamiliar to him at first, immediately reached 50%. In the system, the number of recovery potions exceeded 1, and a golden potion was automatically synthesized. When the quantity reaches 1 million, one purple potion is synthesized. In the end, Tianqi got one purple potion, 50 gold potions, and thousands of scattered ordinary potions. New York house. Having said that, Tianqi has not come back to see this house since he purchased it. As soon as he entered the door, Tianqi discovered that there were many hidden mechanisms. If you force your way in, you will either be knocked down or stunned. Needless to say, it is naturally arranged by the Black Widow. Of course, these things didn't bother Tianqi, so he went straight in, took a comfortable bath, and lay on the sofa watching TV. He instantly seemed to have returned to the homebody life in his previous life. The impact of this war was so great that the superhero could no longer hide it. Fury simply gave up his previous methods and turned to guiding the audience's opinions. Captain America is the most popular among the people because he saves many lives and has been popular for more than 70 years. Many beautiful women also told news interviews about how they were rescued by the captain, and how they were unabashedly nymphomaniacs, a bit like Daisy watching the apocalypse. Not to mention Iron Man, who was already a super celebrity, but this time his fame has reached a higher level. From the original Playboy, he seems to have become a savior. Even the Hulk has gained a large number of fans. After all, in the West, there is never a shortage of fanatics for muscular hunks, let alone oversized hunks like the Hulk. Since Thor was revealed to be a god, countless religious figures and various forces have flocked to him. However, he was not interested in these people, so he shook his hammer and flew away. There is only one person, the figure under the sky pillar, with almost no information. In addition to Fury's secrecy, Apocalypse has indeed never had contact with ordinary people. When he came here, he was mostly flying in the sky. The cameras couldn't catch him, and ordinary people couldn't see him clearly. When we got to the back, the battle center near Tianju had already been evacuated. The people who were safe could only see a human figure from a distance, and it was impossible to distinguish the appearance. As a result, this most powerful god-level hero has become an unsolved case in the eyes of the public. However, I don't know if Fury deliberately released the news. Everyone heard that this man came with Thor, and many people subconsciously regarded Apocalypse as the god of Asgard. Apocalypse doesn't care about this. In the past, I was afraid that I would be targeted by supervillains if I became too famous, but now I am too lazy to deal with such trivial matters. Whether it's heart or strength, as long as a person is strong to a certain extent, public opinion no longer matters. After Black Widow finished her chores, she returned home and jumped directly on Apocalypse. Her legs were like a snake, tightly wrapped around Apocalypse. As a result, Tianligo was on fire, and after a long time. To show respect, there should be more space in between. Black Widow rested her head on Apocalypse's arm, her fingers unconsciously drawing circles on his chest. Tianqi took out a bottle of golden recovery potion and said, "Natasha, this bottle should be able to restore your physical defects so that you can have children in the future." Black Widow's face was filled with joy. She took it and was about to drink it when she suddenly hesitated and said, "Apocalypse, there are frequent wars now, so I don't think it's the right time yet." Then he glanced at Tianqi cautiously. "You won't blame me, will you?" Tianqi laughed. "How could it be possible? I actually never thought about becoming a father so suddenly. I feel like I am still a child. As a man, you will never grow up until you have no need to take on responsibilities." What's more, Black Widow is indeed right. The next few years will probably be the most turbulent time, and it is indeed not appropriate to have children. Iron Man also gave birth to a daughter, Morgan, in the post-Thanos era. Within a few days of such happy days, Black Widow began to go on missions every 3 days. Tianqi secretly cursed that this guy Fury didn't have any eyesight. Next time he would charge his consulting fees severely until he went bankrupt. Since he was bored alone, Tianqi simply went for a stroll. While drinking coffee in a shop, Tianqi never expected that he would meet this old acquaintance in New York, the smuggler of the stowaway shop. The snakehead and his 2 boys were also eating burgers here. When they saw Tianqi, they couldn't help but laugh. "Hey, Oriental, I didn't expect to see you here." Tianqi remembers him because he robbed him of $2. The snakehead remembered Tianqi. In addition to the $2, there was also the reason that Tianqi was an Oriental. He was deeply impressed. The snakehead and the two horsemen came over carelessly, sat down next to Tianchi, and surrounded him. Oriental, look at you dressed like a human and a dog, are you doing well? Apocalypse was too lazy to talk nonsense to these people. 3 drops of brown liquid slowly rose from the coffee cup, preparing to kill these 3 people on the spot. The snakehead didn't notice anything strange in the coffee cup, so he came over and put his arm around Tianchi's shoulders and said, ha 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 ha, Orientals, just smile. You are doing well now. You should be thanking me if I helped you sneak here. Still thinking about that $2? In the world of martial arts, everyone depends on their ability, and be open-minded. I recently bought a batch of horses, including white ones, black ones, and oriental ones. Do you want to pick one? Buy one give one free and you can fly together. Saying that, he winked at Tianchi. Hearing that there were Orientals, the water in Tianchi's cup stopped and asked, where are the Orientals from? The United States is full of opportunities to make a fortune, and countless people want to come here every year. Those in our line of business can always come across some good products, you know. Snakehead is not a passenger transport company and has no services or restrictions at all. Tianchi was robbed of $2 before, but in the eyes of the snakehead, it was nothing. Among the many stowaways, some young and pretty women will be singled out and sold into slavery and prostitution in various parts of the world if they are not protected. This is not even the worst part. Smuggling is not about sitting on a sleeper berth with the air conditioner blowing and enjoying the world. It is often packed in a stuffy tank and traveled across the ocean. News about people dying of starvation, heat, or thirst inside almost every year. This was only discovered on the surface. Behind the scenes, it is impossible to count how many people died on this dark road. Tianchi secretly sighed. Although he was strong, he still seemed so powerless in the face of the evil in the world. There are many crimes and endless killings. Perhaps, this is the original sin of mankind. However, now that we have met him, especially if there are Orientals inside, we cannot ignore him. So, Tianchi said, okay, you take me to see it. The smuggler showed a proud smile and said, according to industry regulations, we need to pay a deposit of $1 first. Can I swipe my card? Brother, what are you thinking about? In our business, transactions are always cash. Apocalypse originally wanted to follow the smugglers to their lair, then kill them and rescue the hostages. Now I have to collect a deposit. Regardless of whether this is a rule or not, it is a bit troublesome because I don't have so much cash with me. In this case, let's just stop doing these things and leave professional things to professionals. If you kill them yourself, you will only be able to destroy one of their dens. There are countless criminal networks out there. You can't interrogate, track, or kill them one by one. That's a grueling job. It's better to let S.H.I.E.L.D. take over, follow the clues, use the power of the military and police to eliminate this criminal group in one fell swoop. Thinking of this, Tianchi picked up the phone and dialed a number. Fury, I'm at the Ice and Snow Honey City coffee shop on street in New York. I ran into a little trouble. Send a few people over to help. With that said, he hung up the phone and continued drinking coffee leisurely. The 3 smugglers suddenly became alert. They pulled out 3 pistols in unison and hid them under the table, holding them against Tianchi's waist. You dare to call someone? I don't have cash with me. What can I do if I don't ask someone to bring it to me? You think I'm stupid, don't you? In your phone call just now, you didn't mention getting money at all. Besides, you have a card on you, and there are ATM machines all over the streets here. As he said that, he pretended to shoot. Tianchi spread his hands and tried to control his temper, fearing that he would beat these 3 people into a pulp and cause the clues to be lost. Okay, you found out. What do you want? The 3 snakeheads looked at each other and smiled, thinking that the Eastern man in front of them was timid, so they pushed even further. Hand over the card and password. Tianchi threw the card on the table and said, the password is 6 zeros. Don't play tricks on us. If the password is fake, I will kill you immediately. The smuggler sent a boy out with the card. Fury here. When I received Tianchi's call, I couldn't think straight for a while. Don is in trouble. Do you want us to send someone over to help? Could it be Loki? No, Loki isn't that strong and can't possibly cause trouble to a pervert like Tang. Could it be the peerless strongman on the other side of the wormhole? Did they send someone over so quickly? With Tang's strength, he could blow up an entire space battleship, so he might not be afraid of them. However, Fury looked at the location. 18th Street was right in the center of the city. The previous wormhole war only affected some streets, and other streets quickly reopened for business. From this point of view, no matter whether Tang Nang can beat him or not, he must be an extremely strong man. Once the fighting starts, even if the victory is final, I am afraid that the entire city will be destroyed and all life will be in ruins. Where could such a perverted guy come from? Even Tang was not completely sure about it. You know, before they thought the Hulk was the one who destroyed the ceiling of power, a few photos made him behave like a kitten. Now that Tang himself is here and wants our help, you can imagine how terrifying our opponent is. This guy Tang is just as arrogant as that guy Tony, and he asks for help in such an understatement. Fortunately, I am smart enough to hear the implication between your words. Thinking of this, Fury wiped the sweat from Lu Dantu and suddenly pressed the red button on the table. Suddenly, a shrill siren spread throughout the base. Alert level 7. Alert level 7. All personnel are dispatched. Suddenly, countless personnel poured out from S.H.I.E.L.D., and tanks and fighter planes began to roar into action, entering a state of combat readiness. At the same time, Iron Man, Captain America, Black Widow, Hawkeye, War Machine, and Dr. Banner, who had not yet left, all received the news. Only Thor, who doesn't like to wear the Earth's communication equipment, is having a romantic and happy relationship with Jane at this time. Fury was so anxious that he couldn't notify him. He just hoped that he would come over quickly after seeing the news. For a time, a tense atmosphere enveloped the entire city. Ordinary soldiers, a dozen blocks away from the street, began to evacuate the crowd to prevent a possible war from affecting innocent people. A large number of civilians screamed and fled obediently following the soldiers' guidance. Given the unruly character of the American people, it is really difficult to evacuate so many people. But the wormhole war had not passed a few days when alien soldiers rushed down and countless people died. In addition, the final shocking battle was witnessed by the whole city. At this time, the military issued a warning, and no one dared to disobey. For a time, a large number of civilians fled the nearby streets with unprecedented efficiency. On the contrary, the street at the center of the storm was calm at this time. Some people heard some commotion in the streets in the distance and thought there was another shooting and ignored it. After all, in free America, shootings are part of their lives every day, and they are not used to it. Apocalypse is a little impatient here. Is that guy Fury so inefficient? Is it difficult to send a few agents over? I've finished a cup of coffee and still haven't seen anyone. The smuggler's brother soon came back with a brown paper bag and opened it for the smuggler. It was filled with US dollars. The snakehead's eyes widened. He thought he was just robbing a small fortune, but he didn't expect that he had robbed a big fish. Boss, the ATM limit has been reached. We can only withdraw so much today. Boss, guess how much money is left in the card? The snakehead slapped him and said impatiently, if you have any trouble, hurry up. How much money do you have left? The younger brother stretched out his fingers and counted them one by one. Finally, he counted all 10 fingers and said, Boss, there are 10 digits in it. I don't know how many it is. The smuggler didn't believe it. How is that possible? He just came here a few years ago. Did you include the decimal point in the calculation? As soon as he finished speaking, he realized that even if the 2 digits after the decimal point were included, there were still 2 digits. This was a huge number in the tens of millions. The eyes of the 3 snakeheads suddenly turned red and they stared at Tianchi greedily. At this time, they have never thought about what kind of person can accumulate more than 10 figures of wealth in just a few years. Can they afford it? At this time, the evacuation work outside had reached street. Roar. Suddenly a huge roar came. The Hulk had rough skin and thick flesh. With a boom, he broke through the wall first and rushed in. When I saw the 3 smugglers pointing guns at Tianchi, I didn't even think about whether this was reasonable or not. Anyway, the one who pointed guns at my friend was the enemy. Then, he opened his big mouth and let out a long roar at the 3 snakeheads. The air waves aroused by the sound blew the hair of the 3 snakeheads into a straight line, and their faces changed shapes under the high-pressure airflow, as if the windows were opened on a high-speed plane. Meanwhile, other superheroes have arrived. Iron Man and War Machine are on the left and right. Fire is spraying from under their suits. 3 meters above the ground, the laser cannon in their hands has been lit and can be fired at any time. Captain America used a shield to protect employees in the store as they fled, while Black Widow cooperated to divert the crowd. The Eagle Eye is knocking an arrow in the distance, and the bow is bent like the full moon, aiming here. Wait, Hulk, don't do it. In front of him, the Hulk was about to attack these 3 unlucky men. Apocalypse hurriedly stopped them and wanted to keep them alive to extract confessions and destroy the entire criminal network. Under the roar of the Hulk, the 3 snakeheads almost suffered cardiopulmonary arrest and did not dare to move. Looking around, he was surrounded by superheroes, and suddenly there seemed to be BGM ringing in his ears. They knew all the superheroes around them. It had only been a few days since the Wormhole War. All the news these days was reporting on this group of people. Everyone knew them. Seeing so many superheroes seemingly targeting him, the snakehead was completely confused. Who I am? Where am I? Are you here to catch me? Are today's superheroes so boring? I'm just a human trafficker, that's not it, right? The smuggler's first reaction was not fear, but confusion. Also confused was Apocalypse, who asked everyone in Iron Man, "Why are you here?" Iron Man said, "Fury said you asked for help and the level 7 alert has been activated. The civilians outside have been evacuated and the fight can start at any time." "What are you fighting for?" "Hulk, stop." The Hulk was stopped for the second time and was very unhappy. They are not friends, they can fight, ho. The 3 snakeheads were forced into a corner by the Hulk and huddled together, as helpless as little white rabbits. The snakeheads felt that they had done too many immoral things and were now having nightmares. The Hulk is not the strongest of all superheroes, but he is the most oppressive. His violent temper would scare even an ordinary person, let alone such a huge man staring down at you. After some communication, Tianchi suddenly couldn't laugh or cry, and then he realized that he had made a big mistake. "Fury, you guy, come out quickly." Fury rushed over from afar, panting, and said, "Don, did you defeat the enemy so quickly?" "What enemy? There are just 3 human traffickers. I asked you to send people over to arrest them." Fury, who understood the cause and effect, was not happy. "Tang, this is unkind of you. You didn't speak clearly and caused such a big misunderstanding. I made it very clear. It's a small problem. Just send a few people over." Fury was speechless. It seems that the original words are like this, but for a strong person like Tianchi, it is a small trouble. Who knows how to define this, small? The Hulk is also a little trouble for you, but who dares to ignore it? Fury had no choice but to say, "Having said that, why don't you just kill them casually? If we destroy it, we won't be able to find the criminal network behind it. You can call the police. Why don't you call me for such a trivial matter? When you asked me to be a consultant, you said you would help me settle small things. This is just a small matter. What, do you want to turn your back on me?" Fury was speechless. He seemed to have promised this at the beginning. After all, it's still my fault. Fury turned around and unleashed all his anger on the 3 snakeheads, and said sternly to the soldiers, "Get the strongest lock. This is the supervillain who was personally ordered to be captured by King Apocalypse. Everyone must be extremely careful." Then, several tire-thick locks were used to cuff the snakehead and others. The snakehead wanted to cry but had no tears. He shouted in his heart, "Heroes from all walks of life are not like this. Is this lock for the Hulk? I do not deserve." It's a pity that he couldn't scream. Not only was his mouth sealed with a metal buckle, but his eyes were also covered with special goggles for fear of any radiation. After being put on such a super torture device, the 3 snakeheads could not move. Finally, they were carried into an armored vehicle and escorted by powerful firepower. They were transported to an unknown destination with great momentum. The whole process was not because Frieza was childish, but because he had to do it. There was such a big movement ahead. Most of the civilians in New York City were evacuated, and all the superheroes were dispatched. But you told me that you were just trying to catch 3 ordinary traffickers. If the truth gets out and Apocalypse doesn't care, Frieza will be drowned in the spit of everyone from civilians to high-level officials. Now, we can only treat fakes as genuine, and we must give the public a reasonable explanation. Many times, what the public wants is not the truth, but the truth that seems reasonable. This was the first time Apocalypse learned from Fury that he had the nickname, Apocalypse King, and he didn't know who gave it to him. However, this nickname uses the English word, Heaven's Revelation. It is completely different from the Chinese pronunciation of his name Tianqi. In the eyes of Western people, this nickname could not be more appropriate. Back then, the whole city was shrouded in dark clouds of star-destroying bombs, and the only light was the energy beam where Apocalypse was. His unshakable figure seems to be shining a flashlight from heaven on the world, giving enlightenment to the people. Tianqi doesn't really care about accidental numbers, as long as they don't sound bad anyway. Now that other superhero friends are here, let's have a party together and have fun. Hulk, in particular, rarely eats in his transformed state. He is extremely surprised by everything he eats. From time to time he lets out a roar and yells like a child. If Apocalypse hadn't been sitting next to him, few people would have dared to stay by his side, including Thor. It's happy here, but it's miserable over Fury's side. As soon as the so-called war ended, countless bosses and news organizations called S.H.I.E.L.D. to inquire about what happened. How big is the threat? How high is the level? Is it an alien powerhouse or an Earthling? What precautions need to be taken to prevent next time? Fury originally wanted to make up some excuses to excuse him, but in the end he got so bored that he just gave it up. At the press conference, he said bluntly, "No comment, this is the supervillain captured by King Apocalypse himself. If you have any questions, you can ask him directly. Don't tell others that they don't know who the real Apocalypse King is. Even if they know, they don't dare to ask." In the end, amid the perfunctory applause of the crowd, Fury tried his best to pretend to be proud and slowly left the stage. Since the number of people affected by this incident is second only to the Wormhole War incident, too many big bosses and forces are paying attention, so it is difficult to kill the snakehead directly. Fury thought for a moment and decided to put on a whole show and transport the smuggler's head to the super prison to avoid the limelight first and then kill him later if he had the chance. The official name of super prison is Island Prison. It is a man-made underwater metal building, and its location is highly confidential. During normal times, it sinks under the sea water, and no one knows where it will float. It will only briefly surface when receiving prisoners or receiving supplies. General Ross is now in charge. General Ross is the old general who captured the Hulk. He has spent half his life fighting superhumans like the Hulk. In addition to developing various weapons to deal with superhuman beings, this super prison was also specially built to hold supervillains. In the later Captain America 3, superheroes such as Hawkeye, Ant-Man, and Falcon were briefly imprisoned. General Ross looked at the prisoner information sent by Fury, which read: Level unknown. The hazard is unknown. Skill unknown. A series of unknowns. Only in the last line of the file was a note written in a very small font, as if for fear of being seen, King Apocalypse arrested him personally. General Ross's hand that was supposed to receive the signature kept shaking, and he couldn't sign it. Finally, he got so angry that he simply stopped signing and called Fury's phone number. "Fury, you old fool, why are you locking such an awesome prisoner here with me? Do you want to kill me?" "General Ross, don't worry. He's just an ordinary prisoner. You can lock him up as you please." General Ross said angrily. "You think I am too blind to see that line of fine print, do you? Can the person captured by King Apocalypse himself be an ordinary prisoner?" Fury secretly thought to himself, "I thought the same way at the beginning, but ended up being tricked into being unable to step down, but I would not say these words to General Ross." I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.